When offered a red envelope for an interview, the grandmother immediately left her precious grandson with a stranger. I caught her in the act, snatched my nephew back, and gave my mother-in-law a piece of my mind. I cost her the red envelope that was already in her hands. Years later, an interview video went viral, and the amount in that red envelope was made public. My mother-in-law grew to hate me with a venomous passion and even goaded my nephew into chopping me up to feed to the dogs. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my mother-in-law was being interviewed. 1. Auntie, you'll get a red envelope for doing the interview, but only the first 10 people. From a distance, I could already hear the high-pitched, cutesy voice trying to stop my mother-in-law. I will remember this voice until my dying day. Before I died, I made a solemn vow that if I could return to the day this misfortune began, I would trade my mother-in-law's 10 years of life for my daughter's lifelong safety. In my previous life, my mother-in-law was manipulated by money, carelessly handing over her newborn to others to care for. It was I who recognized that the acquaintance holding my nephew was a recently released human trafficker. Without thinking, I let go of my daughter and ran to snatch my nephew from the kidnapper. I interrupted my mother-in-law's interview and scolded her. I overlooked my 5-year-old daughter who was crossing the street with me until the screeching of brakes sounded. After being rushed to the hospital, my daughter was diagnosed with a condition that would require her to use a wheelchair for life. The mother-in-law was delighted. Serves you right. Who told you to stop me from getting rich? This is the retribution for your wickedness. A few years later, the interview video went viral, and the red envelope prepared for the interview was exposed. The sight of the red envelope's amount made my mother-in-law's blood boil. That very day, she drugged the meal she made for me and had her 10-year-old nephew wildly hack at me. I woke up in excruciating pain, begging that I would do anything, just spare my life so I could take care of my daughter in a wheelchair. My mother-in-law remained unmoved, and the nephew, annoyed by my cries, pulled out my tongue and cut it off at the root. Then I was cut apart, over and over, like a slab of dead meat, until the day I died. My mother-in-law never let go of her bitterness over not receiving the red envelope. She immediately handed my daughter over to an old bachelor to be defiled. Within days, my daughter was tortured to the brink of death. My nephew took me for live dissection and experimentation. The mother-in-law called it a mother-daughter reunion. To my surprise, the heavens heard my dying wish and allowed me to be reborn. This time, watching as the mother-in-law handed her precious little grandson over to the human traffickers, I gripped my daughter's hand tightly and quickly retreated to the other side of the street. In my past life, my daughter lost her legs in a car accident because I rushed out to save that ungrateful nephew of mine. I could just slap myself silly right here in the street. I didn't want to frighten my daughter, who is whole and healthy now, hiding the guilt and emotion churning inside me. I knelt down and said to my daughter, "Grandma's not here, let's go get ice cream." My daughter immediately looked over toward her grandmother, knew she was worried my mother-in-law would take it out on me later. Ever since my daughter was born, my mother-in-law has found fault with everything I do, constantly complaining that my daughter isn't a golden grandson, forcing me to hand over my salary. After my daughter's accident, I couldn't afford a single penny. What's even worse is that every time I crowdfunded for my daughter's medical expenses, my mother-in-law took it all without fail, saying that my nephew is my only support in the latter half of my life. The hope of my daughter ever standing up was completely extinguished, leaving her confined to a wheelchair for life. The nephew who grew up on my flesh and blood ultimately murdered my daughter and me. At this thought, I squeezed my daughter's hand and told her not to be afraid. From today onward, all the money Mom earns will only be spent on you. Naming my daughter this way is my wish for her to have a smooth and successful life in this lifetime. No one can stop me from loving my daughter. I chose a kids' waffle double scoop sundae for my daughter, and we sat by the window, watching my mother-in-law's every move. My mother-in-law was still immersed in the joy of the red envelope about to be received, gesticulating excitedly as she spoke. The trafficker who had been watching her precious grandson beside her had long since vanished without a trace. I took out my phone and recorded the video of the old woman being interviewed. 2. In my previous life, after I interrupted the old woman's interview, she did it to prove to me that the human trafficker wasn't really a human trafficker. She insisted on handing her nephew back to the human trafficker. She even shoved the chat logs with the human trafficker in my face. See that? That's the gift from my godmother. A full 10,000 yuan. What kind of human trafficker throws money around before they've even made a profit? If it weren't for my daughter's car accident, which gave my mother-in-law such a fright, even if I managed to get my nephew back. Once, my mother-in-law would just abandon him all over again. She's so careless. I can't tell if she truly loves her precious little grandson or not. Watching her mother-in-law ignore her beloved grandson, she grabbed the red envelope and walked off with the girl who had interviewed her. Satisfied, I got up and strolled around with my daughter until nightfall, knowing a tough battle was ahead. I arranged to have my daughter stay at a colleague's house in advance. Returning home, I had just finished helping my sister-in-law, who was on maternity leave. With her bowel movement, the mother-in-law flung the door open with a loud bang. Everyone in the room instantly sensed her foul mood. Her husband quickly stood up, leaned in, and asked cautiously, "What's wrong, Mom? Who upset you? Tell me, and Fang Yuan will give them a taste of their own medicine." That's how it is in our family. When my mother-in-law gets bullied outside, her two good sons will definitely get even and then some. This only fuels my mother-in-law's arrogance wherever she goes. Hearing this, my mother-in-law slammed the red envelope heavily onto the table. "What do you think happened? You promised a red envelope for the interview, but look at this. It's completely empty. You've just been playing me for a fool this whole time." I just smiled. Of course there was no money in the envelope. Not only was there no money, it was a setup. In my previous life, when the other interviewees found the envelopes empty, they kicked up a fuss just like the old woman, refusing to be shortchanged. It stirred up a lot of online buzz for a while, but eventually fizzled out. Later, the interview video went viral, and the issue was brought up again. However, due to the misrepresented statements of several interviewees, the respectable group of men was angered, leading to severe backlash. Since the mother-in-law feels she's at a great disadvantage for not receiving a red envelope, well then, in this life, she might as well just enjoy the thrill that the red envelope brings. Before her husband could even work up any righteous indignation on his mother's behalf, the door was pounded heavily. "Hello, is this Wang Shumi's residence? My apologies, I gave you the wrong red envelope." The mother-in-law didn't even bother fuming with rage anymore. She just flopped down on the floor and called it a day. Her husband, ever the one to champion her cause, flung the door open and seized the initiative. "You think a simple, wrong envelope apology cuts it? What about my mother getting sick from the empty red packet you gave her, that just gets swept under the rug? Have you no shame? Tricking an old lady with an empty red packet just to get an interview, and now she's fallen ill from the upset, and you think a half-hearted apology fixes everything? Well then, how about I drain your bank account and say sorry?" The girl raised her face, revealing her lovely complexion. Her husband suddenly stumbled. I'm sorry. Could you give me the red envelope? I'll exchange it for you." "No, too. Would that be okay?" The girl blinked her wet eyes and asked cautiously. "Yes, of course." My husband grinned from ear to ear as he handed the red envelope back. My mother-in-law sprang to her feet, hoping to snag a couple more red envelopes. My husband casually blocked her. The mother-in-law was hopping mad. "I've been fuming all the way home. 2 red envelopes. That's nowhere near enough. 4, you must give me 4, of course." "Absolutely," the young woman agreed without hesitation and tore open the red envelope her husband handed her. Finding it completely empty, she looked up in disbelief and said, "Auntie, where's the money in the red envelope? Why is it empty? What should I do? What should I do? The boss will kill me if he finds out I lost the money for the red envelopes." Facing the girl's tear-streaked face, the usually self-serving mother-in-law was so angry she jumped 3 feet in the air. Before she could speak, the girl quickly grabbed her husband's hand and placed it on her deep V-neck. "Big bro, help me out." 3. The girl was truly stunning. She was every bit as beautiful as Sister Liang. The heart of the husband, long dead, stirs. "Mom, we're not short of money, just take it out and return it to them." The husband, who had always been obedient to his mother-in-law, began to challenge her authority. Ironically, in the previous life, their daughter was hospitalized after a car accident. I begged him on my knees to get the money from his mother for our daughter's medical bills, but he didn't utter a single word in response. Furious, my mother-in-law thumped my husband on the head a few times and retorted loudly, "There's no money in the red envelope." "None. I might lie to others, but would I really lie to my own son?" Seeing my husband waver slightly, I immediately pulled out the interview video of his mother. "That doesn't make sense. If there was no money, why were you so happy when you received the red envelope?" "Mom, In the video, the mother-in-law was beaming when she received the red envelope. A red envelope with money and one without feels completely different. My husband's expression changed on the spot, and he went through his mother's pockets without regard for boundaries. Mom, stop denying it. I know what you've done. Just take the Mid-Autumn Festival the other day, for example. You stole someone's mooncakes, and when you got caught, you threw a fit on the ground and ended up extorting tens of thousands of dollars from them. It's one thing to extort from the wealthy, but it's wrong to do it to this poor working girl. Do you even want to accumulate good fortune for your precious grandson? The mother-in-law was so furious she almost fell backward, and she reached out to scratch the girl's face. Little vixen, I let you steal my son's soul. After being pushed away by her husband and knocking over the table, the mother-in-law went berserk. But her sister-in-law interrupted with a timely remark. Mom, where's the baby? You're back. Where did the baby go? In my past life, I was fortunate enough to rescue my little nephew, but just look at how my sister-in-law treated me. I was at the hospital, pleading with everyone I could. She was on the phone, holding my crying nephew, demanding I come home to soothe him. What's the big deal about a car accident? She's not dead. If my son gets sick from crying, 10 of your daughters wouldn't be enough to compensate. I was brutally killed by my nephew and begged her for help. Instead, she gave her son a duller knife. Let her feel the piercing pain, so she'll understand in her next life that women are always slaves to men. I just can't muster an ounce of sympathy for her. Mom, who was that who took the baby? You two seem to know each other pretty well. Now that you mention it, I completely forgot to tell you guys, I've just arranged for the baby to have a godmother. Both my sister-in-law and my husband suspected the godmother was a child trafficker. That's not acceptable. I immediately jumped to my mother-in-law's defense, saying, we all see how much Mom cares for the baby. If she's comfortable leaving the baby with them, it means she trusts them completely. Grateful for my understanding, my mother-in-law nodded eagerly. That's right, I'm the baby's real grandmother. Do you think I'd let just anyone touch the baby? The sister-in-law was still uneasy, but was interrupted by the girl's whimpering voice. Good brother, the boss really will kill me. With the girl's pitiful expression, the husband instantly declared, don't worry, I'll pay this money for my mom. I whispered to my husband, your money is still your mom's money. It was only then that my husband remembered his salary had been handed over too. He glanced at his mother and said succinctly, Mom, pay up. I thought my mother-in-law would make a fuss, but to my surprise, she immediately transferred 10,000 yuan. It wasn't that my mother-in-law was strong-willed, it was that my daughter and I weren't worth anything in my husband's eyes. No wonder in my previous life, he took the crowdfunding money for our daughter's treatment for his mother without hesitation. Watching my husband's gaze linger on the girl, then I glanced at my mother-in-law glaring at the girl with resentment. Thoughts suddenly struck me, for the moment the girl who had swindled the money stepped out the door, I went after her. I painted a rosy picture for her. My husband works at an import-export company. His annual income isn't in the tens of millions, but it's at least 5 million. All these years, his money has been kept by his mother, and I haven't spent a single cent of it. I don't ask for much, just what's rightfully mine. The rest is all yours. The girl's eyes lit up like the moon in the sky. I successfully got the girl's WeChat and forwarded it to my husband. My husband kept praising me for being so understanding. When I turned around, I met my mother-in-law's gloomy stare. Useless thing. Can't get the money back. Can't even keep your man in line. Just like your worthless daughter, you're nothing but a burden. The eldest brother's wife is just a dull, servile creature. The younger brother's wife dutifully helped her mother-in-law sit down. I've already sent that woman's photo to Fang Yuan. Just you wait, Mom. Fang Yuan is sure to bring your money back tenfold. Only after she had coaxed her mother-in-law into a beaming smile did the younger brother's wife get down to business. Mom, can you tell me exactly where the person who took the baby lives? We've had someone watch our child for quite a while now. It's time to bring them home. My mother-in-law cleared her throat and stood up awkwardly. You're so impatient. I'll go get the baby right now. I suddenly chimed in from the side. Mom, do you have baby's godmother's WeChat? Maybe we should ask on WeChat if she's home first. What if she's still waiting for you at the square? You'd be making a wasted trip. Do I need you to tell me that? My mother-in-law gave me a look and muttered, listen, this is my best friend from back in the day. Others might scam me out of my money, but never her. Of course she wouldn't. She just took your grandson and sold him for cash. room and board included, and get this, last time when the trafficker got caught, the old lady even went and caused a scene, claiming they'd arrested the wrong person. Well, this time around, she'll get a taste of being swindled herself. The moment Grandma sent the voice message, she got an instant reply. Oh, finally remembered the baby. Did you? You've got some nerve, Grandma. If I were a kidnapper, your grandson would have been long gone. Seeing this, Grandma was absolutely delighted and boasted to us, especially to my sister-in-law. See, that's my ride or die. You can always count on her. She replied, hey, it's because I trust you. Don't be shy about the baby's expenses. I'll send you the money. Come on. No need for formalities between us. Oh, about that master I told you about. Since you never came, I went ahead and booked a slot for you. The master gave me a Buddhist amulet. Look, how happy the baby is smiling now. The human trafficker sent a video. The grandmother was charmed by her little grandson's smile and didn't notice anything wrong with the plastic Buddha pendant. I acted as if I didn't see anything either, and praised my nephew's improved spirit. My sister-in-law saw it, but with my mother-in-law in such high spirits, she had to bite her tongue and keep her thoughts to herself. But when the overjoyed grandmother proposed taking her grandson back, the trafficker's demeanor changed completely. The master said, if the negative energy in the house isn't dealt with, the baby might not survive if he goes back. Upon reading that, my sister-in-law couldn't hold back any longer. No, the baby must be brought back. My mother-in-law meant the same, but she doesn't like her daughter-in-law overstepping her. That way, she would think her daughter-in-law is challenging her authority. And the anger from today's red envelope incident. My mother-in-law just took matters into her own hands. Take care of the baby for me today, will you, Mom? How can a stranger look after a child as well as family? No arguments. The baby is coming home today. Smack. Her sister-in-law covered her cheek, stunned. I am your mother-in-law, and you will do as I say. If there's a next time, get out of my family's house. The mother-in-law shot her a fierce glare before turning and going back inside to lie down. In the corner of my eye, I saw my mother-in-law stingily transfer $100, asking them to take good care of the child and not to lose him. Even through the internet, I could see the human trafficker grinning from ear to ear. I wonder if my mother-in-law will be so angry that she'll want to slap herself when she finds out the truth. 5. After everyone else left the living room, I was the only one left. My sister-in-law couldn't even be bothered to pretend with me and ordered me around. You, go bring the baby back. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes and sent her the video. I also kindly sent her the address of the human trafficker's house. I'm your sister-in-law, not your mother. If you want to pick up the baby, go do it yourself. My son is the golden child of the Fong family. How dare you disobey me? What's it got to do with me? It's not my child, not my grandchild. In my past life, I was the one who took care of her from her pregnancy through her postpartum confinement, yet her son, at just 1 year old, already knew how to bully my daughter. Sensing she had no one to back her up, by 8, he dared to kill a homeless man on the street and bully a classmate to death. While everyone else kept their distance in horror, she was still smug, proud that her son had guts and was a real man. I wonder how this generation will react to seeing their own son treated like a dog. I guess I've set another child's fate back on track. My sister-in-law is hopping mad, but there's nothing she can do about it. After all, this time, the mother-in-law who usually backs her up is on the opposite side. I quietly enjoyed it for a while before going back to my room to sleep. In a haze, I heard the sound of someone opening and closing the front door. I quietly turned over, pretending I hadn't heard anything. At 3 or 4 in the morning, I was woken up by my sister-in-law's knocking. She was crying and shouting, Mom, where's the baby? I knocked on their door, and they said his mother never came home. It's freezing out. How could the baby survive a whole night outside? What's all the shouting about? The mother-in-law hates being woken up from sleep the most, and her daughter-in-law has already offended her for the second time. Can't I, as the grandmother, know if the baby is all right? You're not fit to be the baby's mother. Get back to your parents' home as soon as possible, and I'll find a better one for the baby. Though she said that, the mother-in-law's heart skipped a beat. She quickly took out her phone and immediately called her bestie. 6. Of course, no one answered. The mother-in-law wasn't giving up and tried another number. The call went through. The other end was noisy, but the old lady looked relieved. Where are you? Why aren't you back at your son's place? The human trafficker sighed softly. You think every son is as filial as yours. Well, I had no choice but to go back to my daughter's place. When it comes to this, my mother-in-law proudly puffs out her chest. Her two sons, especially my husband Fong Cheng, are incredibly filial to her. He even suggested letting his sister-in-law stay at our place, and I didn't dare say a word. The human traffickers knew my mother-in-law held all the power, so they targeted her without hesitation. The sister-in-law, sensing something was wrong, snatched the phone from her mother-in-law. "Where is my son? Give my son back to me." The mother-in-law's face immediately darkened. This was the third time. "Yi Chiu-min, do you still recognize me as your mother-in-law?" My husband chimed in. "Sister-in-law, is this any way for a daughter-in-law to behave? Have you no shame?" With my husband backing her up, my mother-in-law's confidence swelled. "Get out of my house and go back to your parents right now. We have no room for a princess like you." She said this while shoving my sister-in-law toward the door. My sister-in-law completely lost it, jumping up and down in a frenzy. "Are you out of your minds? Didn't you hear she went back to her daughter's place? How dare she just take my baby without a single word?" The silent trafficker was silent no more. "Didn't you ask me to watch the kid for the day?" Having second thoughts now. Where was this concern earlier? "Shumi, give me back that 10,000 yuan. I can't be the godmother to your grandson. Don't take it seriously. She's just out of her mind. I didn't mean it." The mother-in-law quickly tried to make amends. "It would be more painful than death to have to return that 10,000 yuan. In my previous life, my daughter and I died for that 10,000 yuan at her hands. A living example. My sister-in-law isn't as self-destructive as I am. She directly got into a scuffle with her mother-in-law. Old hag, that's my son. How dare you just take him away like that? If my son isn't found, you're dead." My husband kicked me, tearing open my recently stitched abdomen, and blood spilled all over the floor. My mother-in-law took one look and thought it was bad luck. She told my husband to just throw her out the window so she wouldn't die in the house. I stopped him. "It's the weekend, everyone's home. If someone sees, paying compensation is the least of our worries. I'm afraid it would leave a criminal record, and our baby might not get into the institutions they want in the future." The daughter-in-law's life versus the grandson's future prospects. Of course, the mother-in-law chose the latter. She kicked her sister-in-law a few more times. "You got off easy. Don't ever come to my house again, and stay away from the baby. Do you hear me?" Her sister-in-law's stubbornness crumbled in the face of the pain. "I hear you," she said. "Speak up." "I heard you." 7. After calling an ambulance for my sister-in-law, I let out a sigh in front of her. "Can't you see it yet? Your son has been sold out by his own grandmother. If she truly cherished your son, how could she not even glance his way after the interview?" I kept replaying the clip of my mother-in-law striding away right after the interview, right in front of her. The interview only lasted 10 minutes, but she didn't come back until after dark. Why is that? Impossible. If she really wanted to sell my son, why would she have you taking care of me? At least she had some sense. But she was dealing with the reborn version of me. You think just because you're carrying a boy, you can lord it over everyone in this house. That's not going to end well. Actually, this is all her way of lulling you into a false sense of security. Look, you still haven't suspected that she sold your son, have you? Seeing the intense hatred in her eyes, I withdrew with satisfaction. As soon as the wound was sutured, my sister-in-law brought her family to storm the door. At that moment, the mother-in-law was boasting to the trafficker about how capable her son, my husband, was, bragging that he had managed to bed the daughter of a wealthy family. Upon seeing her daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law glared and curled her lip in contempt. "How dare you bring your family here to cause trouble? If you so much as break a single cup in my house, I'll sue you for every penny you own. My name isn't Wang Shumi if I don't. You old witch, you sold my grandson. Today, I'm not just going to smash up your house. I'm going to make sure your son can never father another child." They had us outnumbered, and neither my husband nor his brother were home. My mother-in-law was pinned to the ground and roughed up. I watched for a good while before I bothered to tell them what was happening, but, breaking from their usual character, they paid it no mind. No idea what they were so busy with, so hard to guess. With no one to back her up, the old woman only held her ground for less than a minute. Stop hitting him. I'll pay. Whatever you want, I'll pay." It's a rare day indeed to hear the old woman offer to part with her money. What a shame. Money. Pa, you sold my grandson and you dare talk to me about money? listen here, if my grandson isn't found today, you won't live to see tomorrow." The old woman was furious, her face contorted with rage. She shot her daughter-in-law a venomous glare, but her harsh words came out as a forced, softer plea. "Don't you worry one bit, dear in-law, my good friend is taking excellent care of the baby." The other party merely snorted in response. This left the mother-in-law fuming, but with her son not around, she had no choice but to swallow her anger. The corners of her mouth twitched with sheer frustration. In the end, she had no choice but to go to the trafficker's daughter's house, filled with resentment and reluctance. It's not easy to find the human trafficker's daughter's house without the old lady leading the way. It could take half a month. Upon arrival, the human trafficker was sitting at his daughter's doorstep, playing with his young grandson. Seeing the old lady, the human trafficker's eyes lit up. "How did you find me?" "Oh, you're too late. The child has already been taken away." Hearing this, the old lady could no longer remain calm. "Taken away? Who? Fang Yuan, or Fang Cheng?" "Neither. It was a stranger. You won't find them even if you look now. Just let it go. I already gave you 10,000. You can always have another one." The grandmother's world came crashing down. "I trusted you to watch the baby for just a little while. How could you do this?" She came here in a huff. Wasn't she just trying to prove that she was right and her friends were good people? "What's the point now?" She wanted to faint, but I pinched her awake, listening to the human trafficker continue. "Why can't I do this? My son isn't as filial as yours, and I'm treated with disdain at my daughter's place. It's better to go in and get free food and lodging." "Well, it's your own fault. I'd only been out for a few days, and there you were, constantly bragging in front of me about how wonderful your son is and how obedient your daughter-in-law is. What did you expect?" "Of course I was jealous. Of course I had to target you. Why do you get to have everything? I just can't accept it. So what are you gonna do about it?" With me pinching her philtrum, my mother-in-law could only stammer, You, unable to form a complete sentence. The trafficker, wanting to twist the knife further, added, "The moment you handed that child over to me, I sold him. I was afraid you'd find him too easily. So I made sure he was sold deep into the mountains." This time, my mother-in-law really fainted, the kind you can't wake up even if you pinch her. What a useless person. Unlike my previous life, when my nephew turned me into a skeleton, I still had a breath of consciousness left. 8. The human trafficker got what she wanted, ending up in jail with 3 meals and a place to stay. Her sister-in-law wanted to sell her grandson to vent her anger, but the trafficker handed him over without a second thought. This left her sister-in-law with no outlet for her anger, so she turned her aggression on her mother-in-law. In the dead of winter, one bucket after another of cold water was poured over her. The mother-in-law was frozen awake. When she woke up, she was beaten black and blue by her sister-in-law, locked in the room, and starved for 3 days. It was quite pitiful. It was me who took advantage of the break to change her clothes and brought her some hot food, and I kindly advised her, "Mom, don't blame your daughter-in-law for being harsh on you. It's because Fang Cheng kicked her so hard that day. He really hurt her. If we don't get the baby back, her life is as good as over." Yet, the mother-in-law's eyes lit up as she listened. Just as her daughter-in-law came in to humiliate her once more, the mother-in-law shot back with a loud, mocking retort. "Can't have kids anymore. No wonder they're in such a hurry to find the child. Let me tell you, even if they find the child, I won't acknowledge them anyway. My son can have kids. It doesn't matter which woman gives birth. They'll all be my grandchildren." This remark reminded my sister-in-law. That evening, I saw the local trending news. 2 men got into a violent fight in a residential area over the ownership of a girl. The outcome was predictable, but the dramatic twist came when the two were in the heat of the fight. Suddenly, a group of people burst in, without a word. This group subdued the 2 men and crippled them. I could hear how much pain my husband and brother-in-law were in, even through the screen. How could I not share this satisfying scene with my mother-in-law? As soon as the video was ready, I showed it to my mother-in-law. "Mom, don't worry, my husband has Wuyo, so he's not without an heir. My poor brother-in-law is the real victim here. If he can't find his child, his life will be ruined." My mother-in-law watched, her fists clenched tight. "Yi Chumin, I'll kill you," and she actually did it. Seizing the moment while her sister-in-law was inside taunting her, she stabbed her with scissors, leaving a gaping, bloody hole. My sister-in-law pleaded with me for help. I just watched coldly, just like in my previous life. When when I was in so much pain that my soul was trembling. She was clapping for her son, and I was bidding her farewell. My brother-in-law gave my mother-in-law a letter of forgiveness. My mother-in-law suffered no hardship and was carried home to recover, but she couldn't sit still. The moment she could walk again, she was determined to find her only grandson. She even insisted that my husband and I put our jobs on hold to help her search. The next day, my husband brought the girl who had stopped my mother-in-law's interview to our home. "Mom, Meng Meng is pregnant with my child. It's a boy, we need to." Before he could finish, his mother-in-law cut him off. Her face lit up with delight. "Then what are we still looking for? We're done looking. I'll watch over this grandson for you." With his mother handled, my husband turned to me. "Can't you see Meng Meng and I are getting married? Pack your things and get out. What are you just standing there for?" My eyes welled up with tears as I stammered a timid reply. "Husband, how am I supposed to live without you? And Wuyo, she can't lose her father. You think a little girl can tie my son down? If you don't want to end up like Yi Chumin, get out of my house right now." "Mom, I may not have made great contributions, but I've worked hard for this family. You can't just throw me out like this. At the very least, give me my wages so I can provide for your granddaughter. Get the hell out of here. If you don't, I'll stab you with a knife." I made myself scarce immediately, even when he later messaged me to get a divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau in 3 days. I just said, "Fine, fine, fine." My only worry was that he wouldn't show up. 9. At the Civil Affairs Bureau counter, I backed out of the divorce we'd agreed to at the last second. My husband's face darkened, and he looked ready to hit me, but the moment he saw the burly, imposing man standing behind me, he shrank back. I laid out my terms. "Pay me back all my wages from these years, plus compensation, 1 million total, give it to me, and I'll leave right away. I'm not asking for much." I worked in the kitchen, earning over 10,000 a month, over 6 years, with bonuses. That comes to about 800,000, that's just half a year's salary for him. But to keep me in check, he voluntarily put his salary in his mother's hands. I couldn't touch his salary, and he wouldn't even let me use mine. In my previous life, I don't know how I endured it. My mother-in-law was the first to object, but her refusal didn't matter. Lu Meng Meng, pregnant with her future grandson, was pushing hard for a divorce that very day. Her husband had no choice but to cut the Gordian knot. Once I got the money, I left town with my daughter. As I left, my brother-in-law was arguing with my husband over who the father of the child was. 3 months later, bored, I scrolled through short videos. In an instant, I came across them, the mother and her 2 children, crying online about how they had been swindled out of tens of millions of family assets. Even the house we got married in, and the one my brother-in-law was supposed to get married in, were gone. Originally, the public felt sympathy for them, but then the brother's wife's family came out to pour oil on the fire. Suddenly, they became the target of public outrage. The next video showed the mother-in-law being beaten up by her 2 sons in the street. They all blamed the mother-in-law for being greedy and ruining the family. If Grandma hadn't given that interview in the first place, none of this would have happened. They fought, yes, but they still went together to search for the Fong family's only male heir. Fong Cheng and Fong Yuanquan quit their jobs, took Grandma with them, and traveled from village to village across different provinces, live streaming their journey, seeing their single-minded dedication to finding their grandson and enduring all kinds of harsh conditions. People's opinions of them began to change. As a parent, I can't bear to see this. Sending a donation to the streamer and wishing them a speedy reunion with their child. There's not much else I can do to help, but I've got a little extra cash on hand. I'm sending it all as a tip. Hope you get your wish. I did a quick calculation, and the total donations have already made up for the money that was stolen. But I wasn't tempted by the money at all, because the day for the interview video to be released was approaching, and that day was also the day my nephew was found. Seeing my nephew kept in a cage, his body stunted, the grandmother burst into tears immediately. "Baby, Grandma is here to take you home." The nephew stared blankly, unmoved. The incident happened the moment the cage was opened. The nephew sank his teeth into his grandmother's neck, his eyes filled with pure hatred. After being rescued, the grandmother was still in disbelief. "Sweetheart, it's me, your grandma, the one who loves you most." Her words were met with an even more intense glare of hatred from the boy, but he couldn't speak, only able to open his mouth and bare his teeth with a guttural, aha, sound, a display of pure hatred. That's when I knew My nephew also possessed memories from his past life, all because I didn't intervene in this life. He was raised in a cage from infancy, stripped of his very humanity. Even the simple act of speech was now beyond his reach. A family reunion should be a joyous occasion, but suddenly, a huge crowd flooded into the live stream. This is the old geezer who said us single men are a waste of air. Brothers, let's tear this old hag apart. Following these people's lead, those who had been following the live stream went to watch the interview video. After watching it, they came straight back to leave a negative review. Ugh, you played with my emotions. I don't even have words. Give me my money back. So it turns out she deliberately lost her own grandson. I actually bought into her act. Pay up, pay up, pay up. These people were capable of anything. Not only did they dig up the video of the grandmother losing her grandson, they also unearthed and posted online the chat logs between the grandmother and the trafficker. Later, they even went as far as presenting a funeral wreath to the grandmother right in front of her. Wherever you go, you'll be sent there. Her two sons, refusing to repay the debt, were beaten half to death, but even after repaying the money, they were still beaten. To avoid being beaten, the old woman was forced to let her nephew torment her in various ways to appease those people. At this moment, the mother-in-law also awakened memories of her past life. On camera, she was visibly upset. It's Xia Yan. Xia Yan is seeking revenge on us. In her previous life, she clearly brought back my dear grandson and stopped my interview. If you want to find someone, go find her. She's the one who ruined us. No one believed her, and her son only intensified his torment. As for her nephew, due to his environment, he couldn't grow up like a normal child, nor could he integrate into normal society. He died within a year. Meanwhile, my daughter was growing up freely. Embrace her bright future. I've also embraced the blissful life of sleeping whenever I want. Story 2. In my past life, I gave birth to a winged white tiger cub, which elevated me to the highest status among females. My sister, who bore multiple litters yet failed to produce divine offspring, grew consumed by envy. She not only smothered my white tiger cub, but also cast me into raging flames. 1. Crowds of adult males milled about, clad in scanty garments that left little to the imagination. One moment I was being scorched in raging flames, my flesh blistering and peeling with excruciating pain. The next instant, I found myself transported back to the Beastkin selection day. The origin of all misfortunes. Raising my eyes to meet my sister Lilac's eager expression, the seething hatred within me made me want to lunge at her throat and sink my teeth into her jugular. Both my sister and I were of the feline kin, the most sought-after lineage in beastkin selection due to our natural beauty and ability to bear 6 offspring per litter. Among the beastkin clans today, the white tiger, white fox, and lion lineages reign supreme. In our past life, my sister, who'd already been intimate with the white fox clan, unhesitatingly chose the charming and delicate Rafe during the betrothal ceremony. Meanwhile, I was chosen by the white tiger household and wed to the patriarch's eldest son, Kairos. Though Rafe treated others with warmth, he was hopelessly promiscuous. In a beast world where females are scarce and polyandry is common, Rafe took 5 wives. My sister went from raging and beating Rafe to obsessively pursuing the birth of a divine offspring. Among the 3 great clans, whichever peer produces the first divine offspring inherits the Beast King's throne. Tragically, my sister bore over a dozen cubs, all feeble-minded creatures incapable of even shape-shifting into human form. Yet at that very moment, though I had borne but one child after many years, I was a white tiger adorned with iridescent feathered wings, a celestial marvel. This child was blessed by the beast god's favor. As the entire beastkin race rejoiced, my sister, consumed by unstoppable envy, stormed into my home and strangled the white tiger cub to death. Weak from childbirth, I lay helpless on the ground, watching the cub whimper its last breaths before stillness took hold. Drenched in oil, I was consumed by raging flames until only ashes remained. As I silently emerged from painful memories, the Beast King declared the mate selection ceremony officially begun. Just like in my past life, my overeager sister stepped forward first, but this time she bypassed the love-struck Rafe to choose Kairos, my former husband. When Kairos nodded his agreement with a smile, my sister couldn't suppress her triumphant smirk as she shot me a smug sideways glance. Her choice made me realize, my sister has been reborn too. Good, now she'll remember the dying look of that white tiger cub with perfect clarity, because this time, she'll die the same way, only 1,000 times more horribly. Your turn to choose, little sister. Lilac clung to Kairos' arm with the arrogance of a queen who'd already claimed her throne. Little did she know, beneath that towering, majestic frame lay a hollow shell of a man, worse yet, his sterility ensured he could never sire offspring. As for why I alone could bear divine progeny, that's because my gaze involuntarily drifted to Thorn standing silently beside Kairos. Thorn had always been aloof by nature. In my past life as his sister-in-law, he treated me with distant courtesy. He never married, claiming to have no desire for such things, until that day when, battered and bloodied after Kairos' abuse for failing to bear children, I crawled to his doorstep begging for help. His tenderness left me both intoxicated and apprehensive. 2. Moira, hurry up. Are you telling me none of these exceptional males meet your standards? Lilac was deliberately stirring the pot. I choose Thorn. At these words, Thorn looked over with evident surprise. I worried Thorn might refuse. After all, even in our past life, it took considerable coaxing before he agreed. Fortunately, though visibly taken aback, Thorn didn't voice any objections. A wave of relief washed over me. Lilac scoffed at my choice. After all, Thorn was never one for competition. As serene as chrysanthemums in autumn, the matchmaking ceremony concluded, and Lilac was now inseparable from Kairos. Rafe, cast aside and seething, couldn't take it anymore and stormed over to confront them. Lilac, you swore you loved me, that you'd choose me. How could you change your mind at the last second? Rafe stormed over and grabbed Lilac's arm in a fit of anger. That's nonsense. Just because I exchanged a few words with you doesn't mean I have feelings for you. This is utterly unfair. Lilac's eyes welled up with tears as she cast a pleading glance at Kairos standing nearby. While polyandry is common in the beast world, noble families typically practice monogamous pairings. Kairos stroked Lilac's face approvingly, pried Rafe's hand off her, and punched him square in the jaw. His massive fists pummeled Rafe mercilessly, leaving the man's face swollen and bruised. Only when warriors from both clans pulled them apart did Kairos reluctantly withdraw. Watching Kairos defend her honor, Lilac blushed with satisfaction, utterly indifferent to Rafe's battered state. The prouder Lilac acts now, the harder that fist will hit her later. She won't be laughing then. With Kairos leading Lilac away, only Thorn and I remained in the sudden quiet. I followed Thorn back to his place. Thorn maintained his usual stoic silence during the walk. Yet something about this quiet felt different from his typical aloofness in our past life. 3. Back home, Thorn didn't seem in the mood to show me around and went straight into his room. After hesitating for a few seconds, I followed him inside. Thorn was sipping tea in the study, saying nothing when he saw me enter. Gathering courage, I moved closer and sat beside him, tears welling up in my eyes as I spoke with a hint of grievance. Thorn, your silence, does it mean you're not interested in me? Thorn remained wordless after my question. A pang of inexplicable hurt struck me. He'd been so tender and devoted in our past life. In that previous existence, whenever Kairos wounded me, Thorn would always carefully tend to my injuries. Later, he offered to take me away, but consumed by my hatred for Kairos, I stubbornly refused to leave. I made Kairos raise his own brother's son in complete ignorance. I thought I'd relish this thrill of vengeance, yet the cruel truth remains. My paranoia and foolishness not only drove away Thorn who loved me, but also cost the lives of our child and myself. At this realization, uncontrollable sobs racked my body as tears streamed down my face in endless rivulets. All I heard was a resigned sigh before being enveloped in a warm embrace. Thorn's hand gently stroked my back as he nuzzled my cheek affectionately. I greedily inhaled his scent, feeling my heart finally settle into place. If you like Kairos, why choose me? Thorn's sudden remark left me completely baffled. Who told you I liked Kairos? I feel a bit odd. You couldn't take your eyes off him just now. And Thorn trailed off. With a hint of bitterness, I immediately sensed something was off with Thorn, because he was acting exactly like Thorn after he fell in love with me in our past life. And what? I pressed eagerly, but no matter how I asked, Thorn remained silent. Have you been reborn too? I asked point blank. The shock in Thorn's eyes told me I'd guessed right. I buried my face in Thorn's chest, fighting back tears again. Everything has come full circle. But Thorn remains the same Thorn who loves me, now as my beast mate. The thought filled me with joy, yet when I turned to Thorn, I saw hesitation flicker across his face. Aren't you happy? No, it's just, Moira, do you not care for Kairos anymore? Thorn clenched his fingers nervously as he spoke, visibly agitated. I don't love him anymore. He beats me and made me barren. I wish he'd drop dead this instant. How could I possibly love such a man? I frowned, visibly disgusted at being associated with Kairos. Then why did you stay with him in your past life? Thorn's words suddenly made sense of all his inner turmoil and aloofness. I rested my head against his shoulder in frustration, because I resented him and wanted revenge. Didn't he want a child? Let him raise another man's child. When he grows attached to our baby, I'll reveal the truth. That moment of devastation, that's when I'll kill him. Thorn held me tight with a pained heart as he heard my bitter words. Silly you. Never mind, what's done is done, we've got a fresh start. Now, that's all that matters as long as we're together, for, with our hearts unburdened and reunited, Thorn and I began savoring every moment of our life together. In my free time, I'd go hunting in the woods with Thorn. Don't let his refined appearance fool you. The man's arms are pure muscle. He could effortlessly take down a wild boar with his bare hands. We spent our days admiring flowers, gazing at the moon, sharing joys, and occasionally preparing for the arrival of our white tiger cubs. Living in bliss like a beautiful dream. Meanwhile, Lilac, living 100 miles away, was quite different. Her neighbors said she and Kairos spent their days in constant revelry. Even the jaguar neighbor who'd seen it all couldn't help but blush at the commotion. Sadly, no matter how much noise they made, it wouldn't help. If Lilac didn't conceive soon, she'd be in for trouble. Half a year after Thorn and I became mates, I still hadn't gotten pregnant, but we weren't worried. We cherished these moments when it was just the two of us in the wilderness, and besides, Thorn showed remarkable restraint. I know Thorn is being considerate of me, worried that past experiences might make me fearful or uncomfortable with intimacy. Though I miss the little white tiger cub, I truly appreciate Thorn's tender care. Thorn and I were sanding bamboo that day, planning to make some new furniture for our home, but then a furtive, uninvited guest appeared at our doorstep. I jumped when I saw a head cautiously peeking through the doorway. Lilac. I could hardly recognize the figure completely wrapped in animal hide standing before me. It's me. Lilac hurried in, glancing over her shoulder repeatedly as if avoiding someone. Moira, have you been reborn too? You know Kairos has a violent temper and certain inadequacies, which is why you chose his brother instead. Lilac's words dripped with accusation. If you're here to pick a fight today, you can leave right now. I rolled my eyes in exasperation and turned to shoo her out. No, no, no. Dear sister, I'm truly at my wit's end. My health is perfectly fine, yet somehow there's still no sign of pregnancy. I watched Lilac's crocodile tears without the slightest sympathy. Seeing this tactic wasn't working, Lilac deliberately loosened the animal hides covering her face and arms. Crimson marks covered every inch of Lilac's body, leaving no patch of unblemished skin. Sister, look, if I can't bear offspring soon, Kairos will literally beat me to death. Lilac clutched my hand desperately, her eyes brimming with tears as she pleaded. Her grip left red marks on my arm. Just as I tried to shake free, Thorn returned. Thorn shoved Lilac aside and cradled my red-marked arm in his hands, tenderly stroking the bruises while glaring at Lilac with unmistakable hostility. Lilac's body trembled involuntarily at Thorn's expression, her fear of him written plainly across her face. Lilac, Kairos is bad news. Stay away from him. Just spread the word about how he harms females, given how precious females are to our kind. The beast men will rally to your defense. I offered the advice sincerely, though knowing Lilac as I did, I doubted she'd heed it. No, I can't leave him. I mustn't. I still need to bear the winged white tigers. I will become the most revered female, just as I expected. Hearing the obsession with power in Lilac's words, I knew she was beyond redemption. Sister, I beg you, tell me what I should do. To everyone's shock, the normally haughty Lilac actually dropped to her knees. I crouched down to meet her eye level and slowly whispered in her ear, Kairos is sterile. He can't possibly have offspring. Arching an eyebrow, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the stunned expression on Lilac's face. Impossible. Then how did you have offspring in your previous life? Lilac still wore an expression of utter disbelief. It's quite simple. Our feline clan shares ancestry with the tiger lineage. Even without a tiger partner, we can still bear divine tiger cubs. If Kairos is infertile, just find someone who can conceive instead. Lilac had an epiphany listening to me. yet couldn't resist snapping back after getting the answer she wanted. Since when did my innocent little sister stoop to such vulgar behavior? Females naturally take multiple mates. What makes Kairos so special? And even rabbits bite when cornered. Sister, have you forgotten how I died in my past life? I deliberately unsheathed my razor-sharp claws, flashing them menacingly before Lilac's eyes. Terrified, Lilac scrambled out of my house in panic. Does your arm hurt? Thorn asked with concern. I'm fine now. But why is Lilac so scared of you anyway? Lilac was clearly terrified of Thorn's presence just now, because in our past life, she died by my hand. Hearing this, I grew curious about what happened after my death in that previous life and pestered him to tell me. Turns out, in that past life, Thorn arrived drawn by the thick smoke before Lilac could even flee after killing me. Gazing at his burning remains, a heartbroken Thorn split Lilac in half with furious vengeance. He recklessly clashed with Kairos again, but ultimately fell beneath his opponent's crushing fists. Somehow, Thorn abandoned his ascetic demeanor for several consecutive days. 5. Clingy and transformed, as if he'd become an entirely different person. Thorn, that's enough. Let me go. I had just woken up from my nap and needed to use the bathroom, then I realized Thorn was clinging to me like an octopus. Limbs wrapped around me. Moira's awake. Thorn completely ignored my words and kept nuzzling his head against me. Let me go. I need to use the bathroom. Only then did Thorn release his grip, muttering instinctively, Get lost, I'll go with you. I shoved Thorn aside and scampered off gleefully into the woods to answer nature's call. Only after my relentless interrogation in bed did Thorn finally spill the beans about his sudden personality shift. Turns out he'd misread my conversation with Lilac that day, thinking I wanted to add more males to the mix. That's why he's been clinging to me like glue. I couldn't help rolling my eyes at that. With that wild imagination, it's a shame they're not writing fiction, but Thorn's efforts these days paid off. I'm actually carrying his cub now. Orcs have naturally heightened senses. When I first felt that little life inside me, I literally jumped for joy. Thorn was the same, just grinning like an idiot the whole time. In my past life, shortly after I became pregnant, Kairos confined me indoors until delivery. Thorn was completely absent during the pregnancy and barely saw the child. This time he's gone all out with preparations. Just 2 months into my pregnancy, Thorn began stockpiling animal hides for baby clothes and crafting a wooden crib. He even made a tiny bow, saying he'd teach our child archery when they're born. Archery lessons. He's really getting ahead of himself, but seeing how happy he looked, I didn't have the heart to dampen his enthusiasm. Shortly after I got pregnant, news came from Lilac. She was expecting too. Just as we'd suspected, time flew by as wild grasses sprouted through the earth, the weather gradually warming. Spring had arrived. The white tiger cub was born on such a radiant spring day, when blossoms bloomed and the heavens seemed to shimmer with extraordinary light. Exhausted from the prolonged labor, I lay on the bed. Yet tears still welled up the moment I saw the newborn cub. A pair of iridescent wings fluttered brilliantly, identical to those from its past life. Its snow-white fur was still damp, barely the size of my 2 palms together. My cub came to me again. This time, Mother will protect you for sure. Within a day of giving birth, news of my winged white tiger cub spread through the beastkin tribes. Beastkin believe females who bear divine offspring are blessed by the beast god. Having given birth to a divine cub, I regained the beastman's reverence just like in my past life. My newborn Emery, being the first divine cub of this generation in the tiger clan, was tacitly acknowledged as the next beast king. Amidst the joyous celebrations, Lilac went into labor too. She delivered a clutch of eggs. As I listened to Sister Leopard vividly describe the scene, even the midwife's hands trembled while carefully carrying out those eggs one by one. 6. When Kairos' parents saw those eggs, their faces turned livid with rage. Kairos nearly smashed the eggs right then and there. Had Lilac not rushed in to shield them just in time, hearing all this, I couldn't help but chuckle. She actually bought that nonsense about feline tribes birthing divine tigers. I just made that up on the spot, afraid she'd connect the winged white tiger cub to Thorn. But Lilac proved even dumber than I imagined. Betting an egg-laying beast man of all creatures might as well hang a neon sign announcing she's got another mate. Other beast men might let this slide, but Kairos is a different story. As one of the 3 great clans of Beast City, maintaining racial purity is paramount. For the White Tiger clan's eldest son to lay a clutch of eggs, What an unspeakable disgrace. Lilac is in for a world of trouble this time. A thought struck me. I returned to my room, scribbled a note, found an empty basket, and tucked the message at the very bottom. I buried it under all the precious tonics Thorn had recently given me for my health, packing the basket to the brim. Sister Leopard, though my sister bore cubs from another male, polyandry is perfectly natural. The Kairos family is making a mountain out of a molehill. My poor sister, I feigned sympathy. Exactly, name one female who doesn't have multiple mates. That Kairos is just being petty, if you ask me. Sister Leopard, who kept 3 males in her own den, nodded vigorously in agreement. You said it. Here, I've got some nourishing treats. Could you discreetly deliver them to my sister? Just make sure Kairos doesn't see, or she'll never get to taste them. I carefully handed the basket to Sister Leopard. Moira, don't you worry. I'll personally deliver this to Lilac with my own hands. Sister Leopard thumped her chest in reassurance. Watching Sister Leopard walk away, a smile curled at the corners of my mouth. Everything is getting interesting. I've been living leisurely these days, tending flowers when free, playing with my dear Emery, getting cozy with Thorn, while anticipating good news from my lovely sister. Lilac acted swiftly. Within half a month, Thorn was summoned to his parents' home, then rushed back in white mourning clothes. What's going on? I asked knowingly. Kairos is dead, ambushed by Hawk, the Lion King's eldest son, beaten half to death, then tossed into the wild woods for the vultures. Thorn's words nearly made me burst out laughing, but since Kairos was still his brother after all, I held it in. Go ahead and laugh, don't hold back. Thorn kissed my forehead. I was the one who told Lilac to do this, since she bore another man's child. Kairos would never let her live, so I had her strike first, lure Kairos out of the territory, then send her to Hawk. You know I'd never let this grudge go unavenged. Honesty is everything between partners. Make no mistake, Kairos will die. Thorn's seen me persecuted before. I know he'll understand. Good, I always knew our Moira was the sharpest. Thorn reassured me with an easy laugh. Even if neither of us lifts a finger, Kairos will die. He's made too many enemies. It's what he deserves. Thorn was absolutely right. Kairos had been stirring up trouble left and right, relying solely on brute strength and his status as the Beast King's son. During the mate selection ceremony, he mercilessly beat Rafe, earning the Fox clan's enmity. As for Hawk, he once had an older brother named Milo. Milo and Kairos used to hunt together as children, but their partnership ended in a violent clash over prey distribution. Kairos delivered a final punch that sent the already critically wounded Milo into the river. Injured and immobilized in the raging currents, Milo drowned helplessly. His body never recovered. With no concrete evidence, the Lion clan had no choice but to let the matter drop. But Hawk, who revered his brother as a father figure, never missed an opportunity to seek Kairos' death. After Kairos' demise, Lilac was cast out of her home and vanished without a trace, carrying several eggs with her. 7. Rumor has it that someone saw a magpie pecking at Lilac's unhatched egg, with scraps of her pelt scattered everywhere, likely devoured by wild beasts. Everyone began pitying the female in silent unison, but I knew better. This was far from over. Lilac doesn't die that easily. She's plotting something. This death act, just a ruse to lull me into lowering my guard, to prevent history from repeating itself. Thorn has been hunting more aggressively these days to minimize his trips outside. Meanwhile, I've been busy setting up traps near our doorstep every day, ensuring we'd notice if Lilac ever showed up. I've been on high alert constantly, ears perked at the slightest rustle, but after 2 whole months, long enough for baby Emery to take flight, Lilac still hasn't appeared. I'm starting to wonder if she's actually dead. After much deliberation, I concluded that Thorn's constant presence at home left Lilac no opportunity to act recklessly. To relieve my frayed nerves and lure Lilac out sooner, that day, I deliberately had Thorn make a show of leaving before secretly staking out our doorstep. Sure enough, the ruse quickly drew Lilac out. At the sound of a click from the doorway, I quickly locked baby Emery in the inner room. He appeared to be leisurely enjoying lunch, but his foot kept tapping uncontrollably. The figure outside kicked open the bolted door, and a gaunt, furious Lilac stormed in. So changed I barely recognized her. You're here. My indifferent attitude infuriated Lilac, who lunged at me with claws bared. I slapped her across the face with all my strength. Leaving Lilac momentarily stunned, a kick to the back of her knees sent her crashing down as I pinned her throat with my talons. Cornered and desperate, Lilac began screaming for help. Tobias, save me, help me. Moments later, a beast man clad in feathered robes descended from the sky, but before Lilac could rejoice for more than a few seconds, the beast man named Tobias was ambushed by the lurking Thorn. That's all you've got? How dare you come here? I looked at the trapped prey with undisguised contempt. Moira, you deceived me about the secret of childbirth, only to reclaim your position as the most revered female. I hate you, hate the little bastard you bore, hate every last one of you. Had I known this day would come, I should have strangled you in your cradle to end this rivalry forever. Power and fame had driven Lilac mad, her thirst for dominance becoming downright demonic. Sister, the power you cherish means nothing to me. Aya, Moira, drop dead, you vile creature, even buried you'd fester into black ooze, you damned. Before Lilac could finish, I drove my claws deep into her throat. Her bulging eyes rolled back as she convulsed, then fell still forever. Lilac, seeing this, Tobias at the door wrenched free from Thorn's grasp and rushed in, pulling Lilac into a tight embrace. The mingling of tears and blood made my vision swim with dizziness. When I opened my eyes again, my head was pounding. This doesn't look like home. Looking around, the place was packed with orcs in their finest attire, buzzing with excitement. Kairos, Thorn, Lilac, and even Milo were here. This was unmistakably a mating ceremony. I've been reborn again. How did this happen? Did I die again, or does everything reset when Lilac dies? Does that mean I can never truly kill her? I can't process this. I clearly succeeded in killing both Kairos and Lilac. My cub is thriving. Thorn and I are fully mated. And I've never been happier, but what shattered me even more was Lilac choosing Thorn first, and him not refusing. I screamed hysterically, lunging forward desperately to grab Thorn, but of course I failed. Frozen in place, I could only stand there, chosen by the Tiger clan and betrothed to Kairos. No, Moira, what's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? I bolted upright in bed, sending baby Emery tumbling head over heels from where he'd been lying on my stomach. I quickly reached out to catch him. Seeing Thorn's worried face before me, I clutched his hand tightly, the warmth reassuring me it had only been a nightmare. Thorn took a clean handkerchief and gently dabbed the sweat from my forehead. I was still shaken. The dream had felt so terrifyingly real. Lilac and Thorn bore divine offspring, while I was slain by Kairos for failing to conceive after all these years. I confided all this to Thorn. Don't overthink it, nothing will change. I could never love Lilac. You're the only one I want. Thorn held me close, murmuring these words tenderly, but I'm just so upset. Why have I been overthinking everything lately? I furrowed my brows, fighting back the tears threatening to fall. Maybe it's because of him. Thorn lowered his gaze, his large hand resting on my abdomen. I only hesitated for a second before catching on. Do I have another cub? I felt a surge of delight. Thorn gave a firm nod. Little Emery fluttered over and began sniffing around my belly. I cupped my hand over my stomach, gently stroking it. Tears of joy streamed down my cheeks. How wonderful to have you, and our baby. The arrival of our second cub brings even more uncertainties, whether it's male or female, or blessed with divine traits. We can't know yet, but any cub born to Thorn and me will be perfect. Heard Hawk's childhood sweetheart also delivered a divine cub with horns. The lion tribe's beast king succession is finally settled. 9. Chirp chirp. A series of urgent chirps came from outside the door. I was wiping little Emery's face when the noise made the eager hatchling flap its tiny wings, desperate to get outside. Coming, coming. With a smile, I opened the door to find several divine magpie fledglings hopping about, their feathers shimmering metallic teal, crowned with tiny horns and webbed duck-like feet. Before they fluttered onto my shoulders, Emery will be ready soon. You guys just hang tight for a bit longer. Today Tobias is taking the little ones to Gushia to see the ocean. The forest-dwelling youngsters were absolutely thrilled by this novel experience. Baby Emery, who usually sleeps in, miraculously woke up early today. Even the unborn little one in her belly wouldn't stop kicking with excitement. I have to say, are all magpie chicks this talkative? Ever since they came inside, they haven't stopped chirping. Are magpie babies always this chatty? I don't remember Lilac being this talkative. After getting the little ones ready, I brought them to the door where Tobias was already waiting. I gave him a slight nod in acknowledgement. And we didn't exchange any further words. Tobias wasn't exactly friendly toward me. He still resents me, after all. He genuinely loved Lilac too. Rumor has it that during the matchmaking ceremony, Tobias took an instant liking to Lilac. He even deliberately stood by her side, but Lilac didn't spare him a single glance. Why did Lilac choose him to father her child? Tobias knew Lilac was struggling and wanted to help, so he lingered around her home hoping to see her. Confined to limited spaces, Lilac could only encounter Tobias as the sole male presence. Lilac thought she'd successfully seduced him, unaware Tobias had walked into the trap willingly. Rumor has it that Lilac's remains have been perfectly preserved by him to this day. As for why he maintains this arm's-length relationship with me, it's because Lilac's newly hatched offspring contracted a fever unique to the feline clan, leaving Tobias no choice but to seek my help. Over time, the magpie fledglings became frequent visitors to my clinic, and Emery's kid ended up befriending the magpie chicks. Maybe our children will mend the rift between my sister and me. I stood by the door, staring blankly at the direction they'd gone. What are you looking at? Thorn wrapped his arms around me from behind. I was wondering, aside from the beast god's favor, does conceiving a divine offspring also require at least one parent's genuine love? It's not impossible, Thorn pondered before speaking, but none of that matters now. When Emery grows up, whether he chooses to become the so-called beast king is entirely up to him. A peaceful and stable life isn't necessarily bad. With greater power comes greater responsibility. As long as baby Emery is happy, that's all that matters. Weak from childbirth, I lay collapsed on the ground, helplessly watching as the newborn whimpered its last breaths before going still. Thorn's thoughts aligned perfectly with mine. No wonder we're made for each other. Oh dear, Thorn, my tummy feels a bit upset. By the time little Emery came home carrying the small sea fish Tobias caught for him, baby Kea was already kneading in my arms. The moment Emery spotted his sister, he dropped the fish and eagerly nuzzled up to Kea, rubbing against her repeatedly. Little Kea bears the same markings as me on her back, with butterfly-like wings between her shoulder blades just like Emery's. Absolutely breathtaking. The whole family was beaming with joy, except for baby Emery, who was sulking after missing his sister's birth. Emery, sweetheart, didn't you bring a present for your baby sister when you went out? I said, watching Emery pout with his bottom in the air and face buried in frustration. Whimper. Hearing this, Emery immediately picked up the fish in its mouth and placed it before Kea. Unfortunately, Kea didn't even open her eyes. She didn't even have teeth to begin with, but little Emery's mood brightened up anyway. My heart swells with sweetness as I gaze upon our two adorable little ones and my beloved partner, eagerly anticipating each new day together. We'll wander through blooming mountain flowers, stroll in winter wonderlands, splash in summer's heat, and bask in autumn's crimson leaves of love. And, story 2, my best friend is as indifferent as a chrysanthemum, a white lotus so pure and unsullied in this apocalyptic world. The food I'd painstakingly gathered, before I could even take a bite, she casually gave away to several men who'd wanted to kill me. She said it was just some food, and that one should be kind and generous. I saved my best friend from ill-intentioned men countless times, warning her, in the apocalypse, men are more terrifying than mutated creatures. She dismissed my words, saying that humans should unite, and even repeated my warnings verbatim to those men. Later, I was set up by these men and severely injured. My best friend, relying on her seemingly non-competitive and charitable demeanor, managed to marry the leader of the base. She clearly had medicine at hand, yet refused to save me. Catherine is always so competitive and has a strong will to live. Medicine is precious, so it's better to save it for those who need it more. When I opened my eyes again, I was holding food. Seeing my best friend reaching out her hand, I deliberately avoided it. In this life, I want to see if she can live long enough to become the base leader's wife without my help. 1. In the extremely hot weather of the apocalypse, with a sweltering 60-degree temperature, I felt as if I was about to be roasted alive. My skin was cracked, my lips parched, and it felt like a fire was burning in my throat. After much difficulty, I reached the cave, only to find my best friend, June, distributing the water I'd found among several strange men. She stood at the cave entrance, took a sip of the clear water, and then spat it out. Even in the apocalypse, June still insisted on washing up. While I often went without water to drink, she wiped the water from her lips. You're back. As she spoke, She reached out to take the food from me, but I sidestepped her. I couldn't believe I had been reborn. In my previous life, I had protected June with all my might, prioritizing her when it came to the food, water, and medicine I found. She gave away my things, earning a good reputation. With her beautiful looks, she caught the eye of the base leader, and they got married. But when I was on the verge of death, she refused to give me medicine. She said I could pull through and that the medicine should be given to those who needed it more. This incident earned June unprecedented support and praise. While I died without treatment, seeing that I didn't hand over all the food to her as usual, June frowned, looking displeased. "Catherine, what's wrong with you?" I ignored her. My throat was too dry to speak, so I strode forward. I grabbed the remaining water on the table and drank it all down along with the food I'd brought. Since the apocalypse began, this was the first time I didn't feel hungry or thirsty, and I finally felt alive again. How wonderful! What kind of life had I been living before? 3 men stood up and surrounded me. "That water was reserved for Miss Tang. Who do you think you are to drink it? Are you looking for death?" I scoffed, took out the dagger from my body. The blood on it was still wet, and the sharp blade made the men step back repeatedly. "This is the water I found. What right do you have to drink it? If you want to die, just say so, and I'll send you on your way." June came over and tried to pull me back. "Catherine, put it down, girls shouldn't be so violent. It's not nice." She lectured me during peaceful times but hid behind me and ordered me to charge into danger when we were in trouble. This was my so-called indifferent as a chrysanthemum best friend. She was dirtier than the chrysanthemum itself. In my previous life, when there was no water and June had given away the food to those 3 men, she had comforted me with a smile, saying that as a girl, I had a small appetite and it was okay to skip a meal without food and water. I was weak and felt terrible all over, but I didn't even have the energy to force a smile in response. I was about to be taught a lesson by those 3 well-fed men, who claimed they were doing it for June's sake. One of them carved the words, "ugly" and "cheap" on my face. Throughout the whole process, June didn't say a word in my defense. She only stepped in to stop them when one of the men was about to slit my throat. Afterward, she said that a little food and water weren't worth getting worked up over and that one should be kind and generous. She gained 3 spare tire, while I was left with a permanent scar on my face. In fact, if I didn't let her, June couldn't have pulled me at all. My anger flared up, and the 3 men exchanged glances before putting down their weapons. "We'll let it go for Miss Tang's sake. We won't bother with you." It was clear they backed down because they knew they couldn't beat me. How hypocritical. After the men left, June looked me up and down, seeing that I really didn't have any extra food. She opened her mouth and tentatively asked, "Catherine, when are you going to look for food again?" I yawned comfortably. "In a couple of days. Thanks to June, I now have a strong ability to endure hunger." June's expression kept changing even in the apocalypse. Her skin remained fair and moist. This was the result of never having to go out to look for food and get sunburned. And by insisting on washing up every day, even her lips were red and plump. She clearly didn't lack water in this life. I won't support her anymore. I want to see how this pure, indifferent, and kind white lotus can continue to bloom. 2 In the middle of the night, I was sound asleep when I was kicked awake several times. "Sorry, Catherine, I'm just not used to not eating. I can't sleep in the dark." I scoffed softly, pretending not to understand her hint. "You're a girl with a small appetite. It's okay to skip a meal. You'll get used to it after a while." I heard June's breathing beside me suddenly become heavy. She was angry. "So what?" Before, June always suggested that I eat less, saying it was hard to find food in the apocalypse. Her words implied that I was taking more than my share of food. According to her, if I ate 1 meal, it was as if I was starving 2 people to death. But I was out every day, sometimes only having 1 meal a day or even skipping meals. June, on the other hand, stayed at home and had 3 meals on time every day. She was so double standard yet still managed to maintain her indifferent as a chrysanthemum act. It was quite a talent. "Catherine, do you remember the past? You were my personal bodyguard and swore to protect me for life." My family ran a security company, and June was a pampered young lady with 7 older brothers. With the love of her parents and other elders, she was the apple of everyone's eye. Her family had a long-term cooperation with mine. One day, when June visited our company, she saw me imitating the company's bodyguards and practicing boxing out of curiosity. I was 6 years old at that time, and because of that boxing practice, I was unfortunately chosen. By June. Since then, boxing became a compulsory course in my life. My father even arranged for adults to spar with me. If I didn't practice hard, I would just get beaten up, and to punish me, he wouldn't even give me medicine for my injuries. After I mastered it, I became June's personal bodyguard. From then on, she became the center of my world. June knew how to win people over. Although she usually put on airs, she would always call me her best friend after I protected or helped her. The title of best friend became my reward, replacing my salary. It seemed that I could only make a living under June. After years of PUA, even though both the Tang family and my family were gone in the apocalypse, I still protected June. It wasn't until I died once that I finally woke up. I slapped my head hard. What a fool I was. Catherine, be quiet and get some rest. When the young lady sleeps, the whole world has to say goodnight. I turned my head to look at June beside me. Sleep well. Your good days are numbered. From now on, every day will be a living hell. 3. The next day, I still didn't go out to look for food. Without water and food, the glamorous June wilted as quickly as a flower lacking water. Having never gone hungry since she was a child, she was on the verge of collapse, her face contorted. But whenever I looked at her, she would quickly regain her indifferent expression. She could be called the master of face, changing in the apocalypse. After just half a day, she couldn't hold on anymore. Catherine, I think the temperature has dropped a bit. Why don't you go look for food now? Try to find more so we don't have to go out for the next few days. I looked at June and vaguely agreed. I was indeed a little hungry. When I went out, June was unusually attentive to me, even seeing me off to the cave entrance. I wandered around outside, found some water and food, and after eating and drinking my fill, I headed back. When I was almost home, I saw June standing at the cave entrance, looking around anxiously. When she saw me approaching, she even ran over to greet me. Catherine, you're back. Her eyes immediately fell on my hands and backpack. At first, she looked shocked, and after confirming there was nothing, I could almost feel her spirit shattering. Was today not a good day? It doesn't matter. June tried her best to maintain her image, but her voice was already trembling. In less than a day, this person who had always been aloof, focusing only on the spiritual and ignoring the material, was about to cry because of a few bites of food. I smiled brightly. Thank you, June. I actually found some food for you, but on the way back, I met some children, so I gave it all to them. I told them to thank you because it was originally your food, and they asked me to bring their gratitude back to you. I tilted my head. Are you happy, June? Some people survived because of you. Are you already full? How about going for a walk? Don't overeat. I had never approved of June's habit of giving away food before, but she said the spiritual world was equally important. She was more satisfied when someone could live better because of her than when she ate food herself. Today, I decided to give her a big satisfaction. June stumbled, and I quickly stepped to the left to avoid her. She fell to the ground and then jumped up immediately because of the scorching hot ground. I had never seen her move so nimbly. Her smile was the most fake I had ever seen. Yeah, you did the right thing. Although her words were words of approval, they were laced with gritted teeth. Can't stand it already. This is just the beginning. For June learned her lesson and started following me when I went out to look for food. I paid her no mind. This time, I heard that there was a food factory nearby. Before we even reached the entrance, we could hear a commotion inside, with people scrambling for food. June leaned against the entrance, exhausted, and frowned. Why are they fighting? Isn't it better to queue up in an orderly manner? I can help distribute the food. A young man on the outskirts of the crowd heard her and turned around. Who the hell are you? You think you're somebody? Yeah, cue your mother. Damn it, put down that pack of cookies. As soon as the grumpy uncle finished speaking, he threw a punch, and the two started fighting. I quickly joined the fray. To grab food, with my rich experience, I moved through the crowd with ease and could even spare a glance to observe June. At first, she looked down on the scene, disapproving. Seeing that no one paid attention to her, she tried to step in and join the crowd, but without experience and with little strength, she was immediately pushed out. I sneered and stopped paying attention to her. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the crowd. There's blood. Everyone knew that in this apocalypse, where medicine was in short supply, bleeding, and getting injured meant almost certain death. Even during their usual scuffles, people would just punch each other a few times and wouldn't seriously hurt anyone. I saw June next to the injured woman, and her eyes were evasive. I had a bad feeling, pretending to trip. A kind-hearted woman immediately caught me. I smiled and gave the woman a pack of small bread. The woman warmly took my hand and led me over to see what was going on. The woman was lying on the ground, clutching her left waist. Her black clothes were soaked in blood. A pool of blood spread out beneath her. When I saw the familiar rusty knife next to the woman, I felt a chill run through my body. That was June's knife. The blade was chipped and rusty, but she always carried it with her like a treasure. I used to wonder why a young lady like her would like such a thing. Now I understood. With its jagged edge and rust, it was a deadly weapon. The man knelt beside the woman, crying, but there was nothing he could do. Not only was there no medicine, but there wasn't even any alcohol or clean bandages. The color was draining from the woman's face, but she struggled to raise her hand and pointed tremblingly to the left. June tried to back away, but the man caught her and grabbed her by the neck. "You stabbed my wife." At this moment, June didn't bother maintaining her. The innocent need not explain, act. She shook her head while crying and pointed at me. "It wasn't me, it was her." Before I could react, seeing the man looking at me, the kind-hearted woman stepped forward and blocked me. She slapped June across the face. "You little bitch," framing others. "This girl has been with me the whole time. We were on the opposite side of you, you blind fool." The man looked back and forth, not knowing who to believe. Then someone shouted, "She's spitting up blood." We turned around to see that the woman on the ground had already closed her eyes forever. The man lay on top of the woman, wailing, but due to the lack of water, he shed few tears. His mournful cries echoed in the empty space, sounding heart-wrenching. A sense of sadness welled up in my heart, but June beside me said indifferently, "In this kind of environment, death is a relief." After that, she picked up a pack of bread she had grabbed and left quickly. I noticed a deep mark on the inside of her hand, with some rust-like stains. It was clear she had used a great deal of force. One pack of bread cost a life. This was how this noble white lotus defined life. 5. Because June had framed me, we hadn't spoken for several days. However, it was hard to find a cool cave, so we still lived together. These days, June had tried to find food on her own several times but failed every time. The man who had lost his wife took out his anger on June several times when June came back. She was not only hungry but also injured. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and went to her 3 admirers. One day, I was taking a nap in the cave when I heard a woman sobbing outside. I went over and saw June looking up at the sky, with tears welling in her eyes but not falling. Kind-hearted people are always let down. This world is so hard. I noticed that after some time, June's skin was no longer fair and plump. Her once proud long hair now looked greasy and stuck to her scalp. Her lips were dry and covered in dead skin. Didn't she look in the mirror? With this appearance, she really couldn't live up to the image of a pure white lotus. Moreover, in this life, she had only given water to her 3 admirers and nothing else. Now that she was no longer as good looking, she naturally didn't get the same obedient treatment from men as she did in her previous life. So after listening to her, the 3 men just perfunctorily agreed and quietly moved the food and water they had found behind their backs. They understood every hint June dropped, but they just ignored them. They agreed in words but took no action. Finally, June couldn't hold back anymore. "I'm a bit thirsty. I got carried away chatting with you, which reminds me of the day I treated you to water in the cave. We also had a long talk then." After all this effort, after an entire afternoon, June got only a capful of water from a mineral water bottle. It wasn't even enough to moisten her lips. On this day, when I went out to look for food, I deliberately walked quickly to shake off June. Unexpectedly, there was a commotion behind me. When I took a closer look, June was actually standing with Gregory, the leader of the base who was her husband in the previous life. However, this time, Gregory looked displeased and full of disdain. Curious, I approached and heard people saying, "Is this woman crazy?" Exactly. Her actions are so ridiculous that they shock my whole family. 6. June's actions also shocked me. After some inquiries in exchange for a piece of bread, I learned that when June met Gregory, she first pretended to trip and tried to throw herself into his arms, just like she did in the previous life. In the previous life, she maintained her beauty and made many good connections, and was well known for her good character. Even when she pretended to trip, it was considered an accident, which led to a beautiful marriage. But now, without her good looks and reputation, her pretend fall just made her seem like a delusional woman who was ugly but had high hopes. When one plan failed, June came up with an even more astonishing idea. Due to the climate, she heard that Gregory's group wanted to find a new place for the base. June suggested going to her family's old villa. Her exact words were that her family members were buried there, and it was a good location. Building a base required infrastructure construction and resistance against mutant animals that appeared from time to time. That is to say, there would definitely be excavation work, and digging up graves was inevitable. She sacrificed the peace of her whole family for a man. She appeared indifferent, but in fact, she was selfish. June also knew that this was extremely immoral, so she proposed taking me along and leaving the grave digging work to me because I was the one who buried them in the first place. More than a dozen members of the Tang family were all outstanding in their respective fields, but their deaths were rather absurd. When the apocalypse came and they were moving, June seemed unhappy and kept looking back. The sadness in her eyes was more obvious against her indifferent face. She didn't say anything after being asked several times, and finally said lightly, "I was thinking about those clothes and jewelry. They were all expressions of your love for me. It's a pity I can't take them with me. It's okay, don't worry about me. Safety is the most important thing." As soon as she said this, the family members disagreed. Except for me, everyone went back to get the things June mentioned, while I stayed behind to protect her. Unexpectedly, mutant animals entered the villa, and no one survived. I remember that. After the mutant animals left, we went back to take a look. June only said 2 sentences. Looking at her precious clothes, she said, "Alas, they're all dirty." Looking at the scattered bodies of her family members, she said, "It's the irony of fate." June didn't care at all. Afraid of danger, she was eager to leave. It was only because the Tang family had taken good care of me that I used a shovel to put their heads into the pits. As for the body fragments, it was impossible to tell them apart. So I just put some in each pit. June didn't say a word throughout the process. That was probably her true indifference. The Tang family's villa was at the foot of a mountain in the suburbs. It was easy to defend but difficult to attack, and it was indeed a good location. In the apocalypse, having seen so much life and death, the others didn't avoid the matter either. They dug up the graves with me to build the base. Due to June's indifferent reaction to everything, the stinking skeletons that were dug up were casually piled aside, and they planned to bury them in another place when they had time. Unexpectedly, as soon as the basic defenses were completed, mutant animals came to attack. In the extremely hot weather, not only humans but also animals had a hard time surviving. Rarely seeing so much food, the animals outside attacked like crazy. June hid in the innermost part of the room. After ensuring her safety, she regained her calm expression. Pointing at the skeletons, she suggested, "We can throw these out." What a great idea. She was really sacrificing her own family. Did the Tang family kill and set fire in their previous life? Meeting June in this life, they had to die again even after death. Gregory rarely took a long look at June and acquiesced to this decision. Sure enough, after having meat to eat, even if it was rotten meat, the attack of the mutant animals was not as fierce. I looked back at June. Her expression was calm. Looking closely, there was even a hint of interest in her eyes. Looking at Gregory, who kept glancing at her, I understood. However, is it possible that Gregory was just curious about what kind of reaction someone would have when watching their relatives' skeletons being fed to animals? June's brave decision made her shine in the base. They would surely be happy to know that they could save us. My relatives are already dead, and I don't care much about their remains, but I think they have played their greatest role. On my way back to rest, passing by Gregory's room, I heard his subordinate ask him what he thought of June. She lacks both in appearance and character. She's not even qualified to be a plaything. 7. Due to my outstanding performance in going out to find food and doing tasks, I caught Gregory's attention, and he focused more on me. Every time he talked to me, I could feel June's venomous gaze. Gregory wasn't infatuated. In the previous life, he married June mostly because of her good reputation. As the leader of the base, he needed a wife with high support to stabilize his position. In this life, June's behavior of throwing away her relatives' remains did attract a lot of attention. Although there were many people around June, most of them were just watching the fun. In the apocalypse, people's hearts had gradually become cold, and their relatives were the last soft spot. Gregory looked at me only because he appreciated my abilities. I was also deliberately showing off because I had my eye on the position of deputy leader. Power was much more attractive than men. One night, an emergency alarm sounded, and mutant animals came to attack again. There were few women in the base, and June and I lived close by, so we went down together, and June stayed by my side throughout. At night, it was the animals' domain, and this attack was more fierce than the last one. Due to the shortage of materials in the apocalypse, the defensive strength was limited, and soon the animals found a gap. Mutant animals were about to break in, because of my rich combat experience outside. Gregory came to discuss strategies with me. I was fully focused on finding a way to survive and didn't notice what June was doing, but when the mutant animals broke through the defense line and came towards us, I felt a strange gust of wind behind me and quickly dodged to the side. Then I saw June with a ferocious expression, pushing forward with all her might, but Gregory was standing next to me. Gregory didn't react in time and was pushed off, balanced by June. He lost his footing and was about to be injured by the mutant animals. I pulled Gregory over and deliberately adjusted the angle to ensure that when Gregory got up, he would bump into June. June wasn't as lucky as us. She just happened to run into the mutant animals and was bitten on the leg. Her screams were shrill. This was probably the most agitated she had ever been in her life. But everyone was busy fighting, and no one paid attention to her. Just as the mutant animals were about to bite her neck, I stepped in. It would be too easy for her to die like this. This time, many people were seriously injured. Gregory and I were among the few who escaped unharmed, but June was the most severely injured. A piece of flesh was torn from her leg, and there was a risk of infection. Lying in bed, she didn't cry, and the sadness in her eyes was almost tangible. It's okay, I'll get through it if I endure it. Even at this moment, she was still maintaining her false persona. Gregory hadn't forgotten that June pushed him and didn't have a good tone. Well, then you'll be treated last. June's face distorted for a moment, and there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. She was probably wondering why her act of being indifferent and non-competitive didn't work anymore. I smiled and said, June is the kindest. She usually shares her food with others, let alone medicine. Medicine is so precious, so of course, it should be given to those who need it more. June can endure it. Gregory turned and left. When I was about to leave, June grabbed me. Her face showed a variety of emotions. Catherine, help me. I pulled my hand away, not wanting to get infected with the mutant animal's virus. You're supposed to be indifferent, not care about anything, and not compete. What? Does June want to fight for the medicine? June's face turned red and then white, constantly changing. She couldn't bring herself to say the affirmative words. As I was about to go out, I heard a voice from behind. Yes, her words were firm and decisive. If I can't even take care of myself, how can I help others better? Such a strong woman. Then you can go to those people you've helped, the ones you've given food and water to, and see who will give you the medicine. A look of venom flashed across June's face. She probably knew very well what kind of people those were, which further confirmed her expectations. Catherine, I really need the medicine. Even if I have to steal it, I will. Haha, there's no such thing as a truly indifferent person. She's actually more selfish than anyone else. When her own interests are at stake, she competes more fiercely than anyone. Unfortunately, she asked the wrong person, not to mention that medicine is in short supply now, and June was bitten because she tried to harm others but ended up hurting herself. In the previous life, when I was the only one injured in the base, and it was a man-made injury that didn't require special medicine to resist the virus, June still refused to save me. At that time, I only focused on June, and even the contributions I made were given away by her to gain favor. Others didn't see my value to the base at all, so they didn't save me. I died in excruciating pain. When I was dying, I heard her say, Catherine is competitive and selfish. This can be considered a lesson. Yes, I learned the lesson of misjudging people at the cost of my life. Just as I was about to step out of the room, there was a thud behind me. June actually knelt on the ground. Her wound opened and started bleeding again due to the sudden exertion. Please, help me. I can repay you. June didn't finish her sentence. Even at this moment, she didn't want to make empty promises. She wanted something for nothing and was selfish to the core. I left straight away. In the apocalypse, resources were scarce, and the base didn't support useless people. If June didn't use medicine for her injured leg, there was a risk of infection, and she might end up having her leg amputated or becoming disabled. She would only end up being expelled from the base. But the next day, June's leg was already treated and bandaged. I noticed that the atmosphere between her and the ugliest male doctor in the base was a bit strange. Several times when I passed by, I saw the male doctor groping June. June had a coquettish expression on her face, which was fake but very convincing. It was deadly attractive to men. Not many people noticed that June had received treatment. After the 2 attacks, I asked Gregory to improve the base's defense system. At first, no one believed it and thought it was a waste of energy to work in such hot weather, but because of my strength, they didn't dare to say anything openly. However, when the mutant animals attacked the base again and they saw the stable and offensive, capable defense system, everyone was convinced. Even those troublesome men who hurt me in the previous life now bowed and scraped when they saw me. In the apocalypse, the strong were respected, compared with the good reputation that June gained by sacrificing a large amount of supplies in the previous life. Mine was more solid, but I wasn't going to let those men who hurt me off the hook. Unexpectedly, the opportunity came so quickly. One day, when we went out on a mission, Gregory's trusted subordinate was seriously injured while saving him. As soon as Gregory carried the man into the base, he started shouting for a doctor, but strangely, no one came out. With a gloomy face, he went straight to the infirmary and kicked open the door. Inside, a pornographic scene was unfolding. I raised my eyebrows at June. Even with a serious leg injury, she could still lift her legs so high. She was really dedicated. When the male doctor saw Gregory's murderous expression, he was so scared that he lost his nerve. He put on his pants tremblingly and stuttered for a long time without saying anything coherent. June's expression was blank for a moment. She probably found it hard to accept this cruel reality. Her most embarrassing side had been seen by Gregory and most of the people in the base. Everyone was focused on treating the injured, and I saw June's face change several times as she stood in the corner. Finally, her expression settled on, the innocent need not explain. What a fool. After the wound was sutured and bandaged properly, Gregory asked everyone to leave, leaving only the 4 of us in the room. Neglecting your duties and indulging in pleasure. If you're so free, why don't you leave the base? The outside world is much more spacious. Hearing Gregory's words, the male doctor immediately knelt on the ground tremblingly. No, she seduced me. I'm not lying. She wanted more medicine from me again. It turned out that last time, June had given herself to the male doctor for the medicine for her injured leg. This time, she wanted anesthetic and virus agents extracted from mutant animals. June explained that she was weak and wanted to use them for self-defense when going out on missions. Gregory didn't listen to her explanation and simply decided to keep the 2 of them together. This way, June wouldn't bother him anymore. But as soon as he said this, the male doctor was the first to object. I don't want her. This isn't her first time. God knows how many men have been with her. She's so dirty. June looked as if she was about to collapse. She opened her mouth to explain, her face full of shame, anger, and sadness, as if she had been wrongly accused. Only I, who grew up with her, knew that June's reaction meant the male doctor was telling the truth. Before the apocalypse, June was indeed a pure goddess, leading men on but keeping her distance, like a lofty moon that made those men unable to resist her. After the apocalypse, I remembered the strange smell in the cave and the reactions of those men several times when I came back. It turned out that in the previous life, there was not only the favor of food and water but also physical rewards. No wonder those men, even when they didn't lack food and water in the base, were still loyal to June. There was this reason as well. That night, the male doctor knocked on my door. Be careful of June. She asked me for medicine not for self-defense but to harm someone. In the whole base, you're probably the one she wants to get rid of the most. Looking at the male doctor's serious expression, I knew the information he gave was reliable. But he came to tell me just to use me as a pawn to get rid of June. Coincidentally, I had the same idea, and I had already chosen the right person. 9. There was a rare happy event in the base. but for the two people involved, the male doctor only showed disgust and belittlement towards June, while June put on an aggrieved look as if she didn't want to say anything. As time passed, the matter gradually faded away. I found that June had a new target. Actually, it was understandable. If she hadn't been short of medicine for her leg injury, she would never have chosen an ugly doctor who could only treat illnesses. This new target was also an old acquaintance of mine from the previous life, those men who hurt me, because of their equally low moral character and conscience, as well as their almost full-scale brutality. They were well known in the base. The leader of this group had even reached a management position in the base, and the management team would regularly meet with Gregory to discuss matters and report on their work. Through her repeated acts of giving herself, June had become the mistress of the leader. The two were inseparable in the base, and the small-time leader even brought June with him when reporting work. I sat in the secret compartment and peeked out through the brass owl in the corner. June sat on the small-time leader's lap, caressing his body gently. From time to time, she fed him water. Even in such a situation, when the small-time leader wasn't paying attention, she would turn around and look at Gregory with eyes full of pleading and affection. She constantly adjusted the angle of her face to ensure that Gregory saw her most beautiful side. Having worked with Gregory for so long, I've come to understand his habits. He's career-oriented but also somewhat male-chauvinistic and extremely concerned about his reputation. There are few beautiful women in the apocalypse, but in this life, June has stepped on all his landmines. The wind outside the window blew through June from behind, gently lifting her hair. She politely offered Gregory water, but he refused. The disdain in his eyes clearly showed that he really looked down on June, and he didn't forget to glance in my direction, indicating that he wouldn't fall for her tricks. But he really underestimated women, especially those who were on the verge of falling into the abyss. The next second, the smile froze on the small-time leader's face. His body went limp, and he slumped on the sofa, motionless. Gregory tried to stand up but felt dizzy. I touched the gas mask on my face, just in case, and as expected, my bet paid off. June was carrying poison this time, and since she was upwind, Gregory, who was downwind, inhaled it all. Gregory still had some self-control. He reached for the dagger on the coffee table, intending to let some blood to regain his clarity. I wanted to stop him but then thought better of it. It wasn't until the last moment that he could truly learn his lesson. Sure enough, after the first cut, Gregory's body swayed even more violently. Idiot, there could have been medicine smeared on the dagger. Once it came into contact with the wound, the medicine entered the bloodstream and took effect even faster. Gregory gripped the chair tightly with one hand, and the veins on his arm bulged. You're ruthless. He gritted his teeth, and blood oozed from the corner of his mouth due to the force. He took out a syringe from his pocket and, with his last bit of strength, pounced on June and injected it into her body. So ruthless. Using up the entire syringe, in fact, just 1/3 of it would have been enough to ruin a person's life. All three people in the room collapsed. I stretched. The mission was accomplished. On the day the male doctor came to me, I only replied with one sentence: don't break someone's heart. Like is like, dislike is dislike. Being ambiguous is not good. The male doctor's rejection accelerated June's search for a new partner. From the moment she started focusing on the small-time leader, I guessed what June was up to. I told Gregory about it and gave him a syringe. It was given to me by a mad scientist I saved before. It was extracted from heat mutant animals. A little bit could enhance pleasure. 1/3 of it would make a person unable to live without those things for the rest of their life. As for what would happen if the whole syringe was used, he didn't know, but now we could look forward to it. Her husband from the previous life had personally pushed June into hell. I wonder if she liked this gift. 10. When June woke up, she immediately crawled towards the small-time leader's bed. The effect was astonishing. Later, she went from one man to another. Afraid that June was still poisonous, Gregory ordered that no other men should approach her except for the small group, or they would be expelled from the base. Just as I expected, it was better to keep a potential threat like June under close watch. And watching her struggle in hell was much more satisfying than killing her directly. At first, there was joy on June's face, but later, there was only numbness and pain. Yet she couldn't stop doing those things. The men in the small group became visibly emaciated due to overexertion. Seeing her in such a miserable state, I felt relieved. I spent more time with Gregory, learning how to manage the base and accumulating experience. Gregory smiled and said that after some more training, he would make me the deputy base leader. I smiled but neither accepted nor refused. One day, just as I was about to go out with Gregory, a figure rushed towards me. June was disheveled, with her hair in a mess, holding a syringe that was probably filled with blood. She tried to stab me with it. I had developed PTSD from June by now and easily dodged. When she saw Gregory beside me, June looked like a demon from hell. You should die too. Why didn't you marry me? If you had married me, I wouldn't be like this. Oh, she was reborn. It's good that she was reborn. It would make it easier for me to get revenge precisely, with new and old grudges combined. June wouldn't let Gregory go. Gregory finally got impatient and knocked her out, but unexpectedly, June still had a bit of consciousness left and scratched Gregory's hand with the bloody needle. The whole base was on high alert. Just then, a sentry at the gate reported that there was a strange person outside who wanted some food in exchange for a row of strange syringes. What should they do? This behavior seemed so familiar. It was the mad scientist, as expected of a professional. It was found out that there was actually no poison left in June's blood. Just to be safe, Gregory only needed to use an antiviral agent, and June's life wasn't in danger. She just had to keep serving men, but she would suffer great pain. Everything in excess would backfire. The side effects of the entire syringe were inflicted on that small group. When Gregory sent people to check, none of the men in the small group survived. The walls of the room were covered with hideous bloodstains. The clear marks on the iron door showed that they had suffered greatly before death. The bodies of these people had decayed until only skeletons were left. The mad scientist said that their bodies started to decay while they were still alive. That kind of pain was worse than the most severe torture, and when the pain reached its peak, one couldn't even scream. No wonder we didn't notice. June became a public outlet for the men in the base. Her screams became entertainment for the men. It was said that sometimes she had to serve more than a dozen men a day. Most of the time, I didn't come across her, until one day, I saw June in a wheelchair. She couldn't use her legs now and could only get around in a wheelchair. Looking at June, who had a rosy complexion, I teased, "You seem to be doing well." A look of venom flashed across June's face, but then she regained her indifferent expression. It's not easy for those men to work outside. Me relieving their desires is a reward. From the base to them, the reborn June was already in the mud, but she still tried to maintain her act of being indifferent and aloof. Her high-sounding excuses were disgusting, just like a piece of shit trying to pass itself off as a delicious dish. The people in the base had long known her true face. This false mask only trapped herself. Having accumulated enough experience, I was about to embark on a new journey. The mad scientist insisted on following me, so I let him. Gregory tried to persuade me to stay, but I refused. Being second in command is not as good as being the boss. I was going to build my own base too. In the future, there were vast horizons waiting. In this life, I would surely live a wonderful life on my own terms. Story 2. I don't know how much time had passed. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in bed unharmed, while Lulu was lying on his back carefree beside me. I actually was reborn, too. I was reborn 10 days before the outbreak of the apocalyptic zombie virus. To be honest, I don't want to experience being bitten by zombies ever again. This time, I decided to take advantage of the opportunity of being reborn, find a safe place to stockpile goods and food, and survive until the end of the apocalypse. The plan was perfect, but I didn't have any money. I was really poor. My parents passed away unexpectedly when I was in college. I managed to finish college with a student loan. After graduation, I worked for an MCN company, earning a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. After paying the rent and repaying the loan, there was hardly anything left. As everyone knows, a golden retriever is a real glutton. Since I got one, it has made my already poor family even worse off. What? You ask why I keep a golden retriever even though I'm so poor? Because I'm also a human being and I need companionship, and golden retrievers are so great. A dog has so many tricks up its sleeve. Waging a battle of wits with it every day can help prevent Alzheimer's. After thinking it over, The only wealthy person I knew was my ex-boyfriend, Milo. Fortunately, when we broke up, I adhered to the principle of leaving some leeway for future encounters, so I didn't delete his contact information. The phone call was quickly connected, and I used a coquettish voice to act cute. Milo, there was a long silence on the other end of the phone, and then he said, Everly, did you take the wrong medicine? I couldn't help rolling my eyes. After all these years, Milo was still the same, such a handsome guy, but it's a pity he has such a sharp tongue. He was my senior in college. Despite his mean personality, countless girls were still infatuated with him, but I was the lucky one who managed to stand out among many competitors and win his heart. We had a period of being deeply in love, however, until something happened to my family. I broke up with him and took a year off from school. After that, we never saw each other again. In fact, as an ex-boyfriend, he had never done anything to wrong me. Thinking of the past, on an impulse, I blurted out, Milo, a global viral disaster will break out in 10 days, the apocalypse will come, and zombies will sweep across the entire earth. Do you believe me? As soon as I said it, I regretted it. The end of the world. I was afraid that Milo would surely mock me. I believe you. I'll come to pick you up. Surprisingly, he didn't retort me and believe me so easily. I was stunned. 3. When I saw Milo again, I was still struck by his good looks. His skin was pale, his eyes were as black as ink, his lips were as red as blood, and his temperament was gloomy, just like a medieval vampire walking out of an European and American movie. Milo quietly pulled down his baseball cap a little to avoid my gaze. I realized that my eyes were a bit too eager. I gave a heh laugh and got down to business. Milo, could you lend me 2 million yuan? You can spend my money as you like. Milo took out a black card. My eyes lit up, but unexpectedly, he added, but you have to move in and live with me, dude. This makes it hard for me not to think too much. Could it be that you want to rekindle our old relationship? He gave me a disdainful look, looking very noble and cold. You said you were reborn, so you have an inherent advantage. I have money. Only by cooperating with each other can we have the greatest chance of surviving. Well, he really is a businessman, making a reasonable and convincing argument. I quickly moved into Milo's 5,000 square meter villa with Lulu, and this, bullying the weak and fearing the strong, dog, Lulu, was arrogant and unruly in front of me, but when he saw Milo, he became as obedient as a mouse seeing a cat. He stopped destroying things and barking randomly, as if he had become a completely different dog. Milo's villa was located in the villa area in the west of the city, in the suburbs with a low occupancy rate. There was also a metro supermarket 5 kilometers away. The geographical location was very advantageous. Once the zombie virus broke out, there would be few people here, and it wouldn't become a severely affected area. After moving in, Milo showed me around the whole villa. The villa had 7 floors in total, 3 above ground and 4 underground. The 3 floors above ground had ordinary home furnishings. The first floor was the living room, the second floor was the bedrooms, and the third floor was the study. To enter the underground area from the ground, one needed to trigger a very hidden switch and enter the fingerprint password. Then the heavy secret room door would open, and it was very difficult for ordinary people to find, and the 4 floors underground were a whole new world. The first underground floor was the living area, with a sunken living room, a wine cellar, 2 kitchens, 6 large bedrooms with different styles. Each bedroom had an independent bathroom, toilet, and cloakroom. The second underground floor was the entertainment area, including a gym, an esports room, a multimedia room, a bowling alley, a sauna room, a library, a heated swimming pool, a golf simulation venue, and a large monitoring room. The third underground floor had been transformed into a large supermarket and a freezer. It was still empty now. Once it was filled, it would be enough for us to eat for a lifetime. There was also a small hospital equipped with medical instruments and equipment capable of performing minor surgeries. The fourth underground floor was the breeding area, divided into an aquatic product breeding area and a crop growth area. Under the irradiation of ultraviolet lamps, fruits and vegetables could be planted even without sunlight. All the doors and windows of the whole villa were made of special materials. The walls were reinforced, and the bulletproof glass couldn't be broken even by a missile. The whole house was soundproof, with solar panels, a pure water treatment system, A high-tech intelligent system, and surveillance cameras covering every corner inside and outside. The house without any blind spots. After visiting as a poor person, I was overjoyed. This villa was not only impregnable but also extremely luxurious, and there was no room for any further renovation or upgrade. I asked excitedly, "How did you come up with the idea of decorating the house like this?" Milo lazily explained, "I've just been playing a zombie mobile game recently and got interested in building houses. So I simply renovated the villa." I clapped like a seal. "It doesn't matter if you don't have money in the world, but you must hold on to a powerful backer. As long as I stick with Milo, in the apocalypse, I won't just be barely surviving but enjoying life, for, in the apocalypse, people's hearts are unpredictable. For safety's sake, we planned to purchase all the supplies by ourselves." In Milo's garage, there were either luxurious sports cars or SUVs that looked like armored vehicles, which were ostentatious and not suitable for transporting goods at all, so we first bought a small van like those used by cargo delivery services, and then headed straight for Metro. I pointed in the direction of the instant food area and gave orders. "Our main goal today is to buy instant food and canned goods. Instant food has a long shelf life, is convenient to eat, and easy to store. It's simply a great companion in the apocalypse." Although there was a kitchen in the villa and we could cook, but who would do it? I could cook, but would Milo dare to eat what I made? It was ridiculous. Even Lulu wouldn't eat my cooking, and for a wealthy young master like Milo who had never done any housework, there was no need to ask. He definitely couldn't cook. Unexpectedly, Milo immediately proved me wrong. He took out a bunch of certificates from his pocket and spread them out like spring festival couplets. He gave me a haughty look and said, "Who says I can't cook?" I took a closer look and saw certificates such as a Chinese pastry chef certificate, a Chinese cuisine chef certificate, a Western pastry chef certificate, a Western cuisine chef certificate, and a Michelin chef certificate. There were all kinds of them. I was silent for 2 seconds and then asked, "Did your company go bankrupt? Have you switched to making fake certificates?" Milo was amused by me and walked straight towards the fresh meat area. I chased after him, following closely and chattering non-stop. "Come on, young master. Why did you get so many chef certificates? Do you still want to work as a part-time chef and outcompete us?" Milo suddenly stopped. I couldn't stop in time and bumped into his back. Damn, it was so hard. I touched my reddened nose, with tears in my eyes, and said angrily in a nasal voice, "Can't you say something when you stop? My nose is almost broken. Can you afford to compensate for my original, well-shaped nose?" He seemed a bit helpless, let out a sigh, took away my hand covering my nose, and leaned closer to check. "Where did you get hit? Let me see." His handsome face suddenly magnified in front of my eyes, and a clean and fresh breath rushed towards me. I stared blankly at his eyes. His eyes were dark and bright. When he looked at people expressionlessly, he was like a magnet, making people unable to resist being attracted. My heart skipped a beat, and my face turned red instantly. He looked at me and suddenly smiled with a glint in his eyes. He said something, out of the blue. "I don't want to be a chef. I want to raise pigs." Then he let go of me and went to the fresh meat area. I was stunned. For a few seconds, I felt that he seemed to be scolding me, but I wasn't sure and needed to think about it further. There weren't many people in the instant food area, so I started shopping like crazy. 1,000 boxes of self-heating rice, 1,000 boxes of self-heating hot pot, 1,000 boxes of instant noodles in various flavors, 200 packs of snail rice noodles, 100 buckets of hot and sour noodles, 1,000 boxes of cookies, 1,000 packs of potato chips, 500 packs of sausages, 500 boxes of salt-baked eggs, 2,000 cans of various beef, braised pork, and luncheon meat canned goods, 500 bottles of Lao Ganma spicy sauce. After buying everything and checking out, the staff member from Metro who helped with the loading was a good-looking young man. He looked tall and thin but had great strength. While loading the goods, he asked me, sweating profusely, "Sister, what are you going to do with so many things?" As soon as I heard this address, I immediately got angry. "I'll give you another chance. What should you call me?" He was startled by me. His eyes were bright and clear, and he looked at me pitifully. "Miss," I nodded, satisfied to be reasonable, Although there is only one character difference between sister and miss, the meanings are very different. Okay, after this incident, the young man didn't dare to say or ask anything more. He silently buried himself in loading the goods and left quickly after finishing. Milo hadn't come back yet. While waiting for him, I placed orders on Taobao, JD.com, and Pinduoduo for 500 bottles of goat's milk, 500 bags of dog food, 1,000 packs of freeze-dried staple food, and 2,000 cans of various meat products. Then I also bought a large number of chew sticks, dog snacks, toys, grooming tools, health products, and various medicines. After solving Lulu's survival problem, I began to wonder whether to take Lulu to the pet hospital to have him neutered and then get a little female dog. In this way, the two dogs could have a platonic spiritual love in the apocalypse. Just then, Milo came back after shopping. I casually asked for his opinion, but he strongly opposed it. Everly, can't you stop being so perverted? Me, perverted? I was dumbfounded and very speechless. Why are you so excited? People might think I'm going to neuter you if they don't know the situation. Milo was choked by my words and tactically changed the topic. Let's load the goods first. He bought 500 gene of beef, 500 gene of pork, 500 gene of mutton, as well as Australian Wagyu beef of grades M7, M8, and M9, and Japanese A5 grade beef. It just filled the van completely. Looking at the full load of goods in the van, I felt a sense of harvest joy. At the age of 24, I swiped my ex-boyfriend's card and bought a van full of supplies in full. The future looked promising. 5. By the time we had carried all the things to the freezer and the storage supermarket and put them away, it was already late at night. I was so tired that I collapsed on the sofa like a dead fish. When I suggested opening 2 boxes of self-heating rice to eat, Milo looked disgusted. What, do you want to experience the apocalyptic food in advance? That made sense, so I readily took out my phone. Then I'll order takeout, I'll go cook. I put down my phone and watched the young master leave with eager and adoring eyes. Lulu came out stealthily with a frisbee in his mouth. He kept nudging my hand with his wet nose, wanting me to play frisbee with him, but I was really tired. Seeing that I was indifferent, Lulu pounced on me, his fat body weighing more than 70 gene pressed on me, and I almost spat out blood. He looked at me defiantly, wrinkling his brows and biting his lower lip, as if saying, do I really have to look at you with disappointment? There was no other way, so I had to take him to the large lawn in the yard to throw the frisbee. At first, Lulu would pick up the frisbee and bring it back, but later, he completely slacked off and ran freely, like a runaway foal, extremely happy. In the past, there was no chance for him to run. Big dogs were always looked down upon wherever they went. I was afraid of scaring people, so I always took him out to pee and poop at dawn and kept him on a leash all the time. Lulu and I had only moved in for less than 24 hours, but our lives were upgrading at a rocket-like speed. While I was sighing with emotion, the dinner was ready. When I entered the dining room, I saw that in just half an hour, Milo had actually prepared a rich dinner, including steak, pasta, cream of mushroom soup, vegetable salad, and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I couldn't wait to sit down and cut a piece of steak to taste. The moment the delicious juice burst in my mouth, I was almost moved to tears. My road to a laid-back life was getting happier and happier. 9 days before the apocalypse, Milo went out to do some shopping alone in the van, and I stayed at home to receive and unpack the express deliveries. The supplies I bought for Lulu online were arriving one after another. After organizing the supplies, I remembered that in the last life, at the beginning of the apocalypse, the temperature suddenly dropped sharply and it became extremely cold. Half a month later, it became extremely hot, and the weather was very changeable. When it was extremely hot, there was still electricity at home, but the air conditioner was too noisy. So I only dared to turn on the fan and soak in water to cool down. When it was extremely cold, I had a lot of quilts at home, and Lulu had a thick coat of fur, so I could hug him for warmth. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to survive the first month. Although Milo's villa was built like a fortress, and the underground power system was independent from the above-ground one, and the intelligent system could control the temperature, in theory, everything was foolproof. But I was a timid person and liked to be prepared for any eventuality. I immediately placed another order for a bunch of supplies to resist extremely cold weather: clothes, 100 sets each of windbreakers, windproof pants, fleece jackets and pants, down jackets, and quick-dry underwear, travel items, 100 sets each of high-top hiking boots, snow gaiters, snow goggles, waterproof and thermal gloves, socks, cold-proof hats, and small backpacks, camping gear, 20 sets each of -20-degree 1,000-gram down sleeping bags, moisture-proof pads, and tents, 100 pieces each of winter pajamas, summer pajamas, slippers, quilts, and 4-piece bedding sets. Then I also bought some miscellaneous items such as lip balms, sunscreens, headlamps, and thermal water cups. I bought dozens of each item, although there were only 2 of us and 1 dog. In case of any unexpected situations, it would be better to be prepared. By the time I finished placing the orders, the express deliveries were almost all received. Looking at the room full of express boxes, I explained to the delivery uncle, I just graduated and started an e-commerce business, so I'm stocking up on some goods. The delivery uncle looked honest and simple. With a dark complexion, when he heard me say this, he grinned. Starting a business is good. You can make a lot of money by starting a business. My son also just graduated this year and is going to take the civil service examination. Looking at his smile, I thought of my father. When my mother just gave birth to me, he didn't like that I was a girl. After being educated by my mother in various ways, he went to the other extreme and always said that girls were better than boys and that girls could also bring honor to the family. He really wanted me to take the civil service examination. I was the first person in my family to graduate from a 985 university. During that time, he walked with his head held high when going out. I couldn't help but remind the uncle, this epidemic is quite unpredictable. Uncle, you'd better stock up on more food at home as a precaution. The uncle smiled and agreed. I don't know if he will stock up on goods when he goes back, but this is all I can do. I opened all the express boxes and sorted the items. Then Milo came back. I counted the supplies he brought, 8,000 gin of rice, 2,000 gin of flour, 200 barrels of olive oil, 200 barrels of rapeseed oil, 4,000 cases of Evian mineral water, with 24 bottles in each case, 500 bottles of laundry detergent, 500 bottles of body wash, 500 bottles of shampoo, 500 sets of toothbrushes and toothpaste, 1,000 pieces of towels and bath towels, 300 bottles each of salt, vinegar, chicken essence, soy sauce, light soy sauce, sesame oil, cooking wine, and various spices, 1,000 cases of wet wipes and napkins. There were even 500 packs of sanitary napkins and tampons, 200 packs of brown sugar ginger tea. Menstrual pain during my period is my lifelong enemy. I rely on brown sugar ginger tea and painkillers to get through it. Milo was really thoughtful. I threw him a flirtatious look. Milo, come over and help unload the goods, the person said. 6. After unloading the goods, I found a secret room on the 4th underground floor and became curious immediately. When I visited before, Milo didn't introduce this place to me. Was there any secret? Milo couldn't stand my pestering and opened the door of the warehouse. It turned out to be an armory. There were all kinds of firearms hanging on the 4 walls, long and short ones. In the middle were displayed bullets and grenades, as well as some knives, axes, daggers, and other cold weapons. It felt like the armory in the movie Kingsman and looked very impressive. The weapons here are enough to rival a small army, Milo said casually, picked up a pistol and played with it casually. He disassembled and assembled the gun at a very fast speed. Judging from his movements, he was very skilled and professional. I suddenly realized that I actually didn't know him very well. When we were dating back then, what he showed was just the tip of the iceberg of who he was. I felt a little disappointed for no reason. I forced a smile and asked, should I learn how to use a gun from you? In case of danger, I can also help. Milo lowered his eyes and looked at me indifferently. Do you want to learn? To be honest, I didn't. I was just a lazy person with no ambition. I was born under the red flag and grew up in peace, not to mention using a gun to kill zombies. I had never even killed a chicken. During the apocalypse, I only had a head-on confrontation with that zombie once. I still clearly remember the zombie's ferocious and oozing face, and its stinking wide-open mouth that was so close. If it wasn't to save Lulu, I wouldn't have had the courage to fight with it. You don't want to, right? Seeing my silence, he chuckled and rubbed my hair. Then don't learn. I'm here. These words made me want to cry. Since my parents passed away, I haven't felt the warmth of being protected by someone for a long time. I became energetic again and actively suggested, let's transform the yard, dig some deep pits and set up ambushes, in case zombies come. It can serve as the first line of defense. Milo shook his head. In the apocalypse, what we mainly need to guard against is not zombies, but people. The reason why I didn't transform the yard and the 3 floors above ground is that I don't want to be too conspicuous. Being too special makes us easy to be targeted. What he said seemed to make sense, so I gave up this idea. On the 8th day before the countdown, we went to several wholesale markets, 100 bags of various crop seeds, including Chinese cabbage, potato, tomato, eggplant, coriander, chili pepper, water spinach, cowpea, sweet potato, pumpkin, and wax gourd, 1,000 fry of various fish, including snakehead fish, bighead carp, catfish, and grass carp. We also bought several hundred gene of beef, mutton, chicken, and duck. Then we went to several large seafood markets and bought out all the swimming crabs, green crabs, red crabs, king crabs, Mexican red lobsters, European blue lobsters, Australian lobsters, Boston lobsters, salmon, and mantis shrimps. Milo, I knelt on one knee, covered my chest with my right hand, and made a standard salute gesture like Hai Ching. You are my god, he sneered. He seemed to be disdainful, but I clearly saw the smile at the corner of his mouth and the pride in his eyes. 7. In the following days, we filled in the gaps and added some supplies in a hurry. The fish on the 4th underground floor had been raised, and some vegetable seeds had been planted. The freezers and the storage supermarket on the 3rd floor were almost full. The small hospital was also filled with various medicines, which could deal with common colds, fevers, bacterial infections, and external injuries such as gunshot and knife wounds. The entertainment area on the 2nd underground floor didn't need to be taken care of as it had been decorated well during the renovation. The living area on the 1st underground floor had all the necessary daily supplies. There was no need to buy daily clothes and shoes. Each cloakroom was full of big brands like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Prada. There were enough clothes for all seasons without repetition, all brand new with the tags still on. Among the shoes, except for some high heels, most of them were comfortable and lightweight sports shoes. The electricity, water supply, and garbage disposal had all been considered during the renovation. I didn't know what technology Milo used, but even if the whole city lost power and water, it wouldn't affect us. Lulu was a shedding monster. So I placed an order for 200 robotic vacuum cleaners and put one in each room of the living area. When one was broken, it could be replaced with a new one. Everything was ready, and there were only 2 days left before the apocalypse. I belatedly remembered something and asked Milo, what about your parents? Do you want to pick them up? Milo looked reluctant to talk about it. My mother died during childbirth when she gave birth to me. My father is in City A. Don't worry, he has his own plans. On the last day of the countdown, the temperature dropped sharply and it started to snow. We didn't go anywhere and stayed at home playing ball with Lulu. This was a blizzard across the country, regardless of north or south. On the TV news, the reporters were shivering from the cold and talking about this abnormal weather phenomenon. Experts took turns giving their opinions and trying to suit the public's emotions. But what they said was all useless nonsense. In the end, netizens were annoyed. The hashtag suggests that experts stop making random suggestions. Hashtag topped the Weibo trending list. Through my observation in the last life, I found that zombies were afraid of sunlight and their movements would slow down a lot in the sunlight. At the beginning of the outbreak, the sharp drop in temperature also accelerated the spread of the zombies. Milo and I looked at each other and neither of us chose to post a reminder online. We were not saviors, just trying to keep ourselves alive required all our efforts. That night, I didn't sleep soundly. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I vaguely heard some noise outside and woke up with a start. Lulu was sleeping in my bedroom. When he saw me sit up, he also stood up suddenly and came over to rub against me, looking at me with his big confused eyes. When I walked out of the bedroom, Milo was standing outside looking at me. Did you hear it too? I nodded. As a reborn person, I could finally play a role. It's not zombies. In the last life, the zombies spread from the subway during the morning rush hour. at around 7 o'clock in the morning, a man was detected with a high fever when going through the security check, and then he suddenly fainted. When he woke up, he started to bite passengers indiscriminately. Everyone was so scared that they fled in all directions, and the city fell in just one day. It was only 6 o'clock now, so it couldn't be zombies. We went out together to check. When we got outside, we heard clearly that it was the barking of a little dog. Finally, in the corner of the yard, we found a little stray dog shivering from the cold. It was probably 2 or 3 months old, with sparse fur, skinny, and a pair of big and bright eyes looking at me pitifully. We decided to adopt it. Mainly I decided to adopt it, and Milo had no objection. We settled the little dog down. On the TV news, there was an urgent broadcast of a vicious stabbing incident in the subway. The host was saying in front of the camera that this kind of creature had no reason, could come back to life after death, and was calling on everyone to stay at home and keep the door closed. On Weibo and Douyin, the topic of the zombie attack had gone viral. The image of the male zombie in the subway station covered in blood and pouncing on people to bite was being widely spread. Milo and I locked the doors and windows, drew the thick curtains, erased the living traces on the 3 floors above ground, and hid in the underground with Lulu and the little stray dog. The apocalypse had really arrived. 8. Lulu didn't reject the little stray dog at all and was quite interested in it. After giving the little stray dog a bath, deworming it, and feeding it some goat's milk, I isolated and locked it up. It was a little male dog. Its mental state was not bad, and there were no external injuries. However, due to limited conditions, I couldn't give it a further examination. Whether it could survive or not depended on its luck, since it looked like a wrinkled Momo when I picked it up. I named it Momo. Momo's arrival diverted my attention and reduced my apocalypse anxiety. Milo frowned and watched me busy for a long time, then asked a classic apocalypse question. If they were in danger, would you save them? I asked back. Then if I were in danger, would you leave me alone? Do you think I'm that kind of person in your heart? Milo gave me a fierce look. I pretended to cry. Woohoo, Milo, you're so kind. I've decided that from now on, you're my real father. Milo refused immediately. Thank you, but no need. If it weren't for Lulu, I would have died a long time ago in the last life and couldn't have lasted that long. In the last life, later on, all the food at home was gone. I was a stubborn and cowardly person. I would rather starve to death at home than go out and confront the zombies. Once I fainted from hunger and was vaguely licked awake by Lulu. When I opened my eyes, there was actually a pile of food beside me. Probably because I suddenly fainted and Lulu was worried, he opened the door and went out to find food by himself. It was exactly noon, and the sun was shining brightly. The zombies were all dormant and their mobility was slow. Thanks to the genes of a golden retriever, he actually found a lot of food. Lulu's IQ was often erratic, but it was really beyond my expectation that he could get supplies. Later, I became a bit bolder and would take him out to search for supplies together, and we managed to get through each time without any major trouble, until the final accident happened. Have you seen Uncle Shenteng's new movie, Moon Man? That kangaroo, Gangzi, is just like my Lulu. After Gangzi was left behind, if Du Guyu went back to save him, he would definitely die. Why do you think he went back to save him? I babbled on for a long time, and finally came to a conclusion. I guess you've never raised a small animal. Right, it's normal that you can't empathize. Milo smiled with a forced expression. I've raised a pig. Does that count as a small animal? Probably, it does. I got up too early in the morning and was sleepy again. After taking a nap, it was already afternoon. While eating potato chips, I went online to check the situation. The zombie virus was spreading rapidly. Weibo was full of distress messages and videos of zombies attacking people. The major media were still trying their best to speak out, telling everyone not to panic and waiting for the government's rescue. They did rescue people, but it was useless. The spread of this virus was too terrifying. Since the villa was in a relatively remote location, there were still no signs of zombies. After eating the last potato chip, I turned off my phone and bounced off to find Milo for food. I heard that he made king crab, and I was so happy. On the 3rd day of the zombie outbreak, the number of people posting on the internet decreased exponentially. There were not many living people left. Or maybe everyone had become more cautious and no longer posted casually. Milo was quite busy every day. He was busy working out in the gym, swimming in the pool, monitoring the situation outside, checking the growth of the vegetables, and cooking 3 meals a day. And every day, I would stay in the esports room, the multimedia room, wash the dishes, and command the robotic vacuum cleaners to clean the floor. I couldn't do anything else because I didn't know how. On the fourth day of the zombie outbreak, from the monitoring room, we saw that the villa area had also fallen. There were a small number of zombies wandering around. They were very sensitive to sound and moved very quickly. On the seventh day of the zombie outbreak, Momo's isolation period ended and he was released from prison. After my careful care for a few days, his fur became a little shinier. This little guy was incredibly obedient. Every day, he would come to me for cuddles, lick my palm, and lie in my arms dependently, looking at me with his big eyes. Lulu jumped up and down around him, trying to force him to play, but he didn't pay much attention. When Lulu really annoyed him, he would hide in my arms and whimper. That's right, he was a bit scheming, but I couldn't resist it. My heart melted. I used to not understand why men all liked girls with a bit of a scheming side, and even Milo couldn't escape this. Now, I could understand a little bit. 9. On the 10th day of the zombie outbreak, I found that I had gained a little weight. After a moment of reflection, I'd put on a sports bra and yoga pants and appeared in the gym. My original intention was to work out, but I stunned Milo. He was lying on an inclined bench, lifting dumbbells. His wet black hair fell on his forehead, his clothes were soaked with sweat, and his 8-pack abs were faintly visible. He exuded an explosive hormonal charm. When he noticed me staring, he gave me a half-smile and glanced at me with a seductive look, like a demon. I couldn't help swallowing and ran away shamefully. That night, I had a dream. He pinned me down on the sofa. His black eyes were deep, and I almost drowned in his eyes. His slender fingers gently stroked the back of my neck, tender and hot. I was powerless to resist and felt like I was about to melt. When I woke up, I was scared by this dream. After that, I started to avoid Milo a bit. Unfortunately, he caught me, frowning. He questioned me. What's wrong with you these days? Nothing. It's okay. I stammered and lowered my head, not daring to look at him. Look at me when you're talking. Milo forcefully lifted my chin. I was forced to look at his handsome face. Somehow, my mind went blank, and I suddenly kissed his lips. After kissing, I was stunned, and so was Milo. My mind was like fireworks bursting, incredibly gorgeous. I could still feel the touch of his lips on mine, and I couldn't help licking my lips. Milo's eyes changed, and he stared at me aggressively, like looking at some easily obtainable prey. I was scared and turned to run, but he pulled me back into his arms, just like in the dream. His slender fingers held the back of my neck, and he pressed me against the wall and kissed me hard. He was like a hungry wolf, and my face turned red. I almost suffocated. After that, we seemed to enter an ambiguous period. We were both pulling and neither of us was willing to admit defeat. We hadn't played this love game for a few days when a group of unexpected guests pried open the door of the villa and occupied the upper floors of the villa. Among this group of people was a woman I didn't expect, Milo's first love, Clementine. When I saw it from the surveillance video, I was really afraid that Milo would rush out. There were 6 men and 1 woman in that group. They were all muscular men with thick muscles, and each of them was like the Korean action star Ma Dong-suk. They were carrying guns and looked like they were from the underworld before the apocalypse. And they were not to be trifled with. One of them, with a cold and stern appearance, sharp eyebrows and eyes, and regular facial features, unfortunately, had a scar on his left face, looking very menacing. He seemed to be the leader of this group. The group of people checked every corner of the villa separately. They didn't find anything unusual or any food, so they took out their own food and ate it. Then they left one person on guard and the others went to rest. Clementine followed the scarred man, Harrison, into the bedroom together. The others saw this and exchanged a meaningful look, showing a lecherous smile. Milo enlarged the surveillance of that bedroom. Clementine was pushed onto the bed by Harrison. She was extremely delicate, with her long black hair spreading out like a waterfall. She was breathtakingly beautiful, trembling uncontrollably and with tears in her eyes, looking so pitiful. It seemed that they were about to enter into some restricted level scene. We were all adults, and I wasn't really bothered by action scenes since I had seen them before, but I was worried that Milo would feel awkward. I couldn't help but sneak a glance at him. He seemed calm and indifferent, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking at this moment. Clementine spoke again. Harrison, I've already told you that this place is safe. Please spare me. So the scarred man's name was Harrison. He approached Clementine quietly, and she was so frightened that she let out a series of screams. If you want a woman, I know someone who is 10,000 times more beautiful than me. Her name is Everly, and I know where she lives. I can take you to find her. I was so angry. This vicious and despicable woman. 10. Slap. A clear and loud slap was heard from the surveillance. Clementine covered her face, looking at Harrison in disbelief. How could you hit me? I sneered. She still thought of herself as a young lady, expecting everyone to give her some respect. Harrison grabbed her collar roughly. Don't play tricks on me. If you don't want to be slept with, then think carefully about what you can do. I don't keep useless people. After saying that, he left. Clementine seemed to be stunned, huddled on the bed without moving. Milo was still staring at the screen, and I was annoyed. What? Feeling sorry for her. Sorry for what? He said coldly. She deserves it. I was satisfied with this answer. Half a month after the zombie outbreak, the whole city was in ruins, and there were zombies wandering everywhere on the streets, but all the chaos outside had nothing to do with me. I firmly believed that surviving was the key. The Chinese cabbage planted on the 4th underground floor was growing vigorously. At noon, I had fresh Chinese cabbage, stir-fried beef with chili peppers, cola chicken wings, and seaweed and pork bone soup. There were vegetables and meat, a balanced diet, much better than the takeout I used to eat before the apocalypse. Lulu was also living a better life than in the last life, although there was no lawn in the underground villa. The space was large enough. He and Momo chased each other around, getting enough exercise throughout the day. After lunch, I went to the monitoring room again. Goodness, this group of people actually caught more than a dozen zombies and tied them up with iron chains in the yard of the villa, creating a zombie defense wall. Harrison pulled Clementine into the yard and asked, "Well, have you thought it through?" The zombies smelled the smell of a living person on Clementine and went crazy, trying to tear her apart. They let out a series of beastly roars but were held back by the iron chains, only struggling in vain. The accident happened in an instant. One of the zombies actually broke free from the iron chain and pounced on Clementine ferociously. She was too scared to move. So close, Harrison swung his knife and chopped off the zombie's head in one stroke. The zombie blood splattered all over the two of them. Clementine's psychological defense completely collapsed. She said in a trembling voice, I've thought it through, but I only want to be your woman." "That won't do," Harrison said with a playful smile, touching Clementine's face. "I have so many brothers. Come on, Harrison, don't you want me to belong only to you?" Clementine leaned into Harrison's arms and coquettishly, her pale face showing a vicious light in her eyes. "Didn't I tell you? I have a good sister named Everly. We can bring her here for the other brothers, can't we? What if she doesn't listen? If she doesn't obey, just throw her to the zombies." Okay, I'll listen to you." Harrison was aroused by her rubbing and half-heartedly agreed. The two scoundrels went into the bedroom arm in arm. I knew that Harrison and the others couldn't possibly find me, but I was still so angry that my whole body was shaking. It was easy to imagine how miserable my fate would be if I really fell into their hands. Clementine was still as cruel as ever, trying to kill me several times. Suddenly, Milo stood up abruptly and walked straight out. I came to my senses and quickly grabbed him. "Hey, where are you going?" His whole body muscles were tense, his eyes were cold and there was a hint of killing intent. "I'm going to kill them." I was stunned. He didn't seem to be joking. I quickly soothed him. "Milo, forget it. It's not necessary." Milo looked at me steadily, not saying a word. I forced myself to continue persuading. "Look, I'm fine now. There's no need to." Before I could finish, he pulled me into his arms and hugged me tightly, as if he wanted to crush me into his bones. He was holding me so tightly that his hands were even trembling slightly. At that moment, all my anger dissipated. I hugged him back tightly. 11. With the enemy in the open and us in the dark, I started to slack off again. I no longer went to the monitoring room every day, and my daily routine returned to what it was at the beginning of the apocalypse. I became a happy, lazy person again. I woke up naturally every day. First, I would go to the 4th underground floor to look at the fish and then the vegetables. The greenery was so pleasing to the eye. When I came back from the vegetable field, a delicious breakfast was already waiting for me. After eating and drinking my fill, I saw Lulu lying on the sofa sleeping. I couldn't resist the urge to play with my dog. I pounced on him like a tiger, hugging his golden head and kneading it. I also picked up his stinky paw and smelled it. It had a popcorn smell, which was really addictive. Lulu looked completely resigned to his fate. Milo frowned at me. What kind of hobby is this? I gave him a disdainful look. You don't understand. Little Momo came over, rubbed against my hand, and let out a whimper. I was so charmed that I immediately abandoned Lulu, picked up little Momo, and kissed his little black nose wildly. While kissing him, I also talked to him in a coquettish voice. Ah, Mommy's little Momo, you're so cute. Mommy loves you so much. Do you love Mommy? Lulu let out a sigh. Looking relieved, Milo frowned even deeper, glanced at Momo, and said 3 words, little schemer. It was really quite funny. When I was bored, I would also go to the monitoring room to take a look. Had to admit that this group of people still had some abilities. With zombies running amok, they still went out to collect supplies every day and had quite a good harvest. Clementine adapted quickly to her new identity. She had the temperament of a vengeful young lady. She wanted to take revenge on all the subordinates who had bullied her before. There was a subordinate named Silas in their team. He was Harrison's right-hand man and was very dissatisfied with Clementine. Clementine didn't take him seriously either, and the two of them were always at odds. Harrison was very ambitious. He wasn't satisfied with the current situation. He called his subordinates together for a meeting ambitiously. In the next few days, we'll clear the zombies in the villa area and then use the villa area as a stronghold to establish a base. Once the base is established, we can recruit more people, expand our team, and become the king in the apocalypse. This Harrison had clearly read a lot of male protagonist apocalypse novels. He had a whole set of ideas. Silas raised an objection. I think we shouldn't be too impulsive. The current supplies are enough for us to last for 10 days or half a month. Although there aren't many zombies in the villa area, it's still very dangerous to clear them. Other teams are eyeing us, and we need to preserve our strength. Being refuted by his subordinate, Harrison looked unhappy. Clementine observed the situation and immediately jumped out to sneer. If you're afraid, just say so, don't make it sound so nice. Silas was a hot-tempered person. He kicked over the tea table in front of him, his veins bulging, and raised his fist to shout, "You bitch, say that again." Clementine threw herself into Harrison's arms delicately. Harrison, look at him, he's trying to rebel. Enough, Harrison roared. Do as I say. Silas was so angry that his head was smoking, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. But before the base could be established, Harrison was carried back by his subordinates. Covered in blood, he had been shot and was in a high fever and coma. When Clementine got the news, her face turned pale instantly. 12. Silas temporarily replaced Harrison as the leader of the team. The first thing he did after taking office was to order people to throw Clementine into the yard to be fed to the zombies. Clementine resisted desperately, shouting hysterically, "You can't treat me like this. I'm Harrison's woman. When Harrison wakes up, he won't let you go." The subordinates hesitated and looked at Silas. In the monitoring room, I also held my breath in front of the screen. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for revenge, but Silas actually backed down. Lock her in the bedroom first. Is that all? Is that all he's got? I couldn't help but complain to Milo. Silas is so useless. He has good combat power. Milo sat in front of the screen calmly, commenting, "It's just that he's not very smart." He was indeed not very smart. Silas actually volunteered to lead the team himself, taking one other subordinate to go to the hospital to find medicine for Harrison. As everyone knew, the hospital was a zombie stronghold, and one basically had to be prepared to never come back. Obviously, the other subordinates weren't ready for this and all lowered their heads to avoid his gaze. Silas was so angry that his face turned distorted. Staying in the villa isn't necessarily safe either. The team that attacked us today could come knocking on our door at any time. It turned out that when they went out to search for supplies this time, they encountered another team. Both sides refused to give in for the sake of the supplies, so they fought. That was when Harrison was shot and injured. In short, that team must be very powerful, because as soon as Silas finished speaking, a Subordinate immediately raised his hand and expressed his willingness to go to the hospital with him. The personnel were assigned, and Silas led the team to the hospital. The 3 people left in the villa, 2 were on guard, and 1 was responsible for watching over Clementine. For the time being, everything was calm. There was nothing interesting to watch next. It was all boring parts. I took the opportunity to take a nap. When I woke up, I found that Lulu and Momo were lying on either side of me, sleeping on their backs with their tongues sticking out. They were so cute that it made me smile involuntarily. Unlike the bloody chaos above the villa, it was really happy under the villa, and all of this was because of Milo. I suddenly had a pang of conscience and volunteered to cook a loving dinner for Milo. The ingredient I was best at using was eggs, so I made a whole egg feast, including fried rice with eggs, scrambled eggs with chili peppers, stir-fried eggs with meat, steamed minced meat with eggs, and egg soup. Milo was also very obliging and ate everything without changing his expression. I smiled and watched him finish eating, and said eagerly, "Is it really delicious? I'll make it for you again next time." Milo glanced at me. "Why did you suddenly want to cook?" "To repay you." I smiled sheepishly. "You've been so good to me. I'm here with my dog, and all my food, clothing, housing, and transportation are provided by you." He interrupted me calmly. "There's no need." I was stunned and lowered my head in embarrassment. Then I heard his cold voice again. "It's only natural to be good to my girlfriend. There's no need for repayment." I couldn't believe it and suddenly raised my head, staring blankly at him. Are you confessing to me?" He had beautiful eyebrows and eyes, looking at me steadily. Suddenly, he smiled. "Silly girl." This unexpected tenderness instantly touched my heart. I threw myself into his arms and clung to him like a piece of chewing gum, acting coquettishly. "Milo, Milo, Milo, do you love me?" "I do." "How much do you love me?" He gently kissed my forehead and said in a low voice, "More than you can imagine." I looked into his eyes, fascinated. His black eyes were like a lake, full of deep affection, and I somehow believed him. I stood on tiptoe and kissed his thin lips. He took the initiative, picked me up horizontally, and carried me towards the bedroom. 13. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Milo's smiling face. Seeing this face, all the events of last night immediately came to my mind. I felt a bit embarrassed. "Good morning," he chuckled, his tone ambiguous. "It's not early anymore, it's already noon the next day." I became annoyed and pushed him. "Get out." "I want to get up." "Are you sure?" Milo raised his eyebrows and slowly lifted the quilt to get out of bed. My eyes couldn't help but follow him, from his face to his Adam's apple, then to his abs, and finally to a certain indescribable part. But then he put on his pajamas. I felt a bit disappointed. Then I saw him looking at me with a half smile. Falling in love really makes you lose your head. I needed to go to the monitoring room to calm down. In the video, Clementine looked dejected and sat on the ground in a daze. The subordinate responsible for watching over her, a young man who looked like he was only about 20 years old at most, felt sorry for her and shared some of his food and water with her. "Eat something." Clementine slowly looked at him and asked in a daze, as if sleepwalking, "What will happen to me if Harrison doesn't wake up?" The answer was obvious. She crawled and rolled over to the young man's feet, hugging his legs and begging, "Please save me. Silas will definitely not let me go." At this moment, the bedroom door was kicked open, and 2 bald men responsible for the villa's security came in. Seeing this scene, they laughed. "Lucky you." Balde kicked Clementine flying with a kick and cursed, "Whore, Harrison hasn't even died yet, and you're already seducing our 6th brother." Clementine lay on the ground, unable to get up for a long time, crying bitterly. Baldby spat hard. "Stop wailing like you're at a funeral. So unlucky." After dealing with Clementine, the 2 bald men smiled and said to the young man, "Your brother Silas hasn't come back all night. Something might have happened. We need to send someone out to check." The young man was silent for a moment and then said, "I'll go, but I can't handle it alone. I need another person." The 2 bald men looked at each other and then at Clementine lying on the ground, and smiled. "Take this woman with you." "I don't want to go. I don't want to go. There are zombies outside. I don't want to go." Clementine screamed in horror, her voice so shrill that it almost pierced the roof, causing the zombies chained in the yard to become restless. I could tell that the young man, in fact, wanted to save Clementine. Staying in the villa meant certain death for Clementine, but if she went out with the young man, there was a glimmer of hope for her survival. As I expected, when the young man found Silas and came back, Clementine didn't show up. The young man's excuse was that she was already dead. 14. Harrison really had a strong will to live. After using the medicine that Silas brought back, he woke up and his injury recovered quickly. The weather suddenly changed from extremely cold to extremely hot. The temperature soared above 50 degrees Celsius. It was unbearably hot, and it was almost impossible to walk outside. It wasn't much better indoors either. The only good news was that the zombies were not as difficult to deal with as before. The zombies tied up in the yard were exposed to the sun and almost entered a semi-dormant state, not moving at all, although the water and electricity in the city had been cut off for a long time. The villa had two independent water and electricity supply systems. One was responsible for the above-ground floors of the villa, and the other was for the underground fortress of the villa. So Harrison's team could still live quite comfortably with the air conditioner on every day. They only went out to search for supplies briefly every morning, for a maximum of 2 hours a day, and then they got off work on time. After going through this great disaster, Harrison's ambition to expand his territory had long been extinguished, and he became someone who just wanted to survive. In this way, half a month passed peacefully, and then the villa was surrounded. The people who came were exactly the team that had injured Harrison before. I also saw a familiar figure, Clementine. She really wasn't dead and had become glamorous again. She stepped forward to negotiate with Harrison. Harrison, my boss said that as long as you give up this villa, he'll spare your lives. The villa was impregnable and had an independent water and electricity system. Who wouldn't be jealous of it? Harrison was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. You're talking complete nonsense, then. There's no room for negotiation. Clementine laughed coquettishly. Her expression turned cold, and she waved her hand to give orders. Surround them, as the boss said. There were more than a dozen people in this group, and they immediately surrounded the villa tightly, intending to starve the people inside to death. Harrison and the others were furious. They had lived too comfortably in the past dozen days, and there was almost no food left in the villa. They had to go out to find supplies. They endured like this for a few days. Harrison felt that they couldn't just sit and wait for death any longer. Jasper stood up again and proposed to break through the siege at night. They would release the zombies in the yard, use those zombies as a cover, and rush out in the chaos. Zombies attacked indiscriminately, without distinguishing between friend and foe. But they didn't have any other options now. It was an extremely tragic battle. The zombies in the yard hadn't eaten for a long time. Their hunger and ferocity were beyond that of ordinary zombies. The team blocking the outside was caught off guard, and more than half of their members were lost in an instant. The two sides exchanged fire, and the gunshots attracted zombies from several kilometers away. Milo frowned. These idiots. He sent out a drone to check. The image detected by the drone really shocked me. A large number of zombies were rushing towards the villa area frantically. They were so dense that they formed a zombie tide. To be honest, whether in my previous life or this life, I had never seen so many zombies. They were running at an extremely fast speed. In at most 10 minutes, the villa area would be overrun by these zombies. The battle in the villa also reached a fever pitch. There were only 4 people left in the opposing team. Here, the Bald brothers were already dead, and both Harrison and Silas were seriously injured. Clementine and Jasper were hiding in the kitchen. The zombies outside the door were banging on the door, frantically, almost about to break it open. Jasper looked calm. He looked up at the ventilation duct on the ceiling. Step on my shoulders, open the ventilation duct, and climb up, then pull me up. Clementine climbed up while crying. When she reached out to pull Jasper up, the door was broken open by the zombies. Clementine screamed and immediately let go of her hand. Jasper fell down. Jasper was surrounded by zombies, but his expression didn't show the slightest bit of panic. He held a kitchen knife in each hand and chopped at the zombies with all his might, as if cutting watermelons. Clementine was crying loudly in the ventilation duct. Jasper kept chopping and said, I don't blame you. There were too many zombies to chop. He numbly waved his arms, mechanically repeating the chopping action. He looked up at Clementine, on his face full of blood. There was a naive, boyish smile. I can finally rest well. The kitchen knife clanged and fell to the ground. The zombies swarmed up and devoured him completely. The ground was shaking. and the zombie tide was surging. The villa area completely fell. 15. Clementine hid in the ventilation duct until daytime. After the sun rose, the zombies outside all entered a semi-dormant state. She crawled out along the ventilation duct. Finally, when she was about to escape, she was shot and killed by Harrison. Harrison was immediately torn apart by the zombies. In the entire villa area, no one survived. Spring passed and autumn came. Above the fortress, zombies were running amok. Below the fortress, Milo and I, with Lulu and Momo, cherished every day and lived a plain and fulfilling life. I learned to dance and successfully got rid of the fat that Milo's delicious cooking had made me gain. Lulu finally stopped destroying things. During this period, he got pancreatitis once. I was so scared that I cried. In the end, Milo cured him. Since then, Lulu has liked to stick to Milo more than me. I found that Milo was like a god. There was nothing he couldn't do, from basic life skills like cooking and repairing to treating people and dogs, shooting, and fighting. He was omnipotent. One day, I was snuggled in his arms watching a movie. In the middle of it, I suddenly asked him, "Are you also reborn?" Milo raised his eyebrows. "Is it that obvious? You just noticed." "I noticed a long time ago." "Okay," I said stubbornly. "So when did you get reborn?" "When you broke up with me, so early." I jumped up in surprise. "So when I broke up with you, you didn't even try to keep me, because there really wasn't any time. I had to learn all kinds of skills and prepare for the apocalypse." He pulled me back into his arms again and gently kissed me. "You said that if the apocalypse came again, you hoped you could lie back and relax." I was confused. I remembered saying that. It was in my previous life. At that time, my family was out of food and my stomach was growling. Hugging Lulu, I was crying and making a wish, hoping to find a powerful backer and be able to relax. But how did Milo know? I pressed him. "Tell me the truth. Are you hiding something from me?" Milo pondered for a moment. "It's a long story." "Never mind, you can take your time. I have plenty of time." Milo began to tell the story. In the previous life, just like this life, at the beginning of the apocalypse, Clementine wanted to play the game of showing true love in adversity. She secretly ran out to find Milo but encountered Harrison and the others on the way. To save herself, she brought Harrison's group to Milo's villa. Milo became a member of Harrison's team in order to negotiate with them. When the apocalypse came, the person Milo was most worried about was me. Clementine found out about this. Out of jealousy and resentment, she began to instigate Harrison to come to my house to find me, but every time, Milo stopped them. That's why I was able to survive for so long in my previous life. In the previous life, Harrison and the others were also attacked, but he wasn't injured. Milo blocked the bullet on purpose. He used a bitter trick to gain Harrison's trust. Harrison was really touched and regarded Milo as his most trusted person. After Milo was shot and fell into a coma, his soul drifted to my house. Somehow, he switched bodies with my golden retriever, Lulu, in the body of a golden retriever. He accompanied me, helped me find food, and prevented me from starving to death. Later, when his gunshot wound healed, the body switching was no longer stable. Sometimes when he opened his eyes, he found himself in the body of a golden retriever, and sometimes he found himself back in his own body. Just as he was thinking about how to solve this problem, Clementine found a way to send him away and brought Harrison to my house together. She deliberately lured Lulu out with food, alarming the zombies. In the end, I died in the hands of the zombies while trying to save Lulu. At the last moment of my life, Milo's soul switched back to Lulu's body. He tried his best to pull the zombies away, but it was in vain. He watched helplessly as I died in front of him. That's why he said Clementine deserved it. He hated her to the core. 16. After Milo finished speaking, I was crying uncontrollably. So whether in the previous life or this life, my peaceful days were all because he was shouldering the burden for me, because I wanted to relax. After being reborn, he learned all kinds of skills and built a solid underground castle for me so that I could relax with peace of mind. Only then did I finally understand how much weight his words, "I love you more than you can imagine," carried. Milo sighed and gently wiped my tears. "I knew you would definitely cry, so I didn't want to tell you." I wailed even louder. He held me helplessly and patted my back gently to comfort me. "It's okay, cry if you want." Meeting Milo in this life was my good fortune. Year after year, in the 5th year of the apocalypse, The extreme weather gradually returned to normal. The number of zombies was also slowly decreasing. Some zombies fell and never got up again. Gradually, there were signs of humans walking on the streets. It was said that coastal cities had developed a vaccine, and water, electricity, and the internet had been restored. More and more survivors were speaking out on social networks. The whole society was gradually returning to order, and Milo and I, with Lulu and Momo, walked out of the underground castle for the first time. A full 6 years had passed, and they had all grown from puppies to mature and steady dogs. The villa was overgrown with weeds, showing a lush green. A new world was being reborn.